A very pleasant good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Roger Korinteng, Interim Advisor and Head of Public Sector Governance, Commonwealth Secretariat, United Kingdom. Mr. Dirk Harrison, Chairman of the Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrity Commissions and Anti-Corruption Bodies, a regional association. Lady Anande Trotman-Joseph, Chairman of the Integrity Commission Grenada, and Lady Joseph will be joining us during the course of the morning. Mr. Robert Robinson, Deputy Chairman, Integrity Commission Grenada, other members of the Integrity Commission Grenada, Rhonda Jones, Permanent Secretary Acting, Department of Public Administration, Chairmen, Chief Executive Officers, Managers and Directors of our statutory bodies in Grenada, other invited guests, staff of the Commission, media, and I want to say last but by no means least, a very, very special welcome to our overseas participants for this regional training program, and they will be identified during the introductory section of this opening ceremony. So ladies and gentlemen, I extend a very warm welcome to the Integrity Commission's Virtual Center of Excellence Series, Senior Leadership and Management Training, which is done in collaboration with the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Department of Public Administration. As we continue on our journey for this week, I share with you that today actually is the third day of our program. We commenced on Monday with other groups of stakeholders, and we would conclude tomorrow with the Integrity Commission's National Anti-Corruption Roundtable Mechanism. And this group comprises the heads of various key ministries and departments, including the DPP, Director of Audit, Procurement, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, Foreign Affairs, etc., key stakeholders as it pertains to Grenada's anti-corruption mechanisms. It is fitting at this time to invite the presence of the Lord in our midst, and to so do and deliver the invocation, I welcome Mr. Robert Finley, Investigations Compliance Officer of Grenada's Integrity Commission, to the podium. Mr. Finley.
Could you stand, please? O merciful God and Father in heaven, we come before Thee this morning in and through the name and person of our Lord and our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. O Father, we are thankful unto Thee for all the mercies and blessings bestowed upon us day by day. We thank Thee, Lord, for this opportunity once again that we can be gathered in this way, that, O Father, we might be participants in this Center of Excellence series. And we pray especially, Father, for those who have come from abroad, especially for our facilitators. We thank Thee for them, and we pray, Lord, as we continue in this series, that Thou wouldst give guidance and blessings upon all that is done and said. We thank Thee, Lord, for all the day-by-day blessings we have, health and strength and mercies every day. And, oh Father, even as we continue in our various offices and our various functions in the service of our country, we pray, Lord, that what we may learn here today may be of benefit to us and our country in general. So as we continue, Lord, we just ask for blessings and for your mercies upon our gathering here today, and we give you thanks in the name of our Lord and our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Finley, our investigation/compliance officer at our Integrity Commission, Grenada. At this time, and in keeping with the program, I now invite Mr. Robert Robinson, who is our Deputy Chairman at Grenada's Integrity Commission, to share his welcome remarks. Deputy Chair, Mr. Robert Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sandy David. And let me greet you all present. And even though Mrs. Sandy David did what I consider an introduction, I think I need also, as protocol would have it, to repeat. So we have at the head table, and nearest to me, Dr. Roger Corenting, who is the interim advisor and head of public sector governance of the Commonwealth Secretariat. And next to him is Mr. Dirk Harrison, chairman of the Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrity Commissions and Anti-Corruption Bodies, and representatives of the, and rather than say that long name over, I will give you the initials, CCAIC-ACB. Commissioners of the Integrity Commission, permanent secretaries, and especially permanent secretary of the Department of Public Administration, the chairmen and chief executive officers, managers and directors of statutory bodies, other invited guests, staff of the Integrity Commission, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here as the Deputy Chairman of the Integrity Commission, and I welcome you all today to today's program for statutory bodies as we continue this historic virtual Center of Excellence series, Senior Leadership and Management Training Program. I say historic because we are joined by overseas delegates and engaged with a wide cross-section of national stakeholders during the last 2 days, including permanent secretaries, senior managers, the Royal Grenada Police Force, the Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, the Department of Audit, and civil society representatives and others. Given that the main platform of our discussions today will be about improving public sector management and an oversight as a deterrent to corruption practices, I am reminded of the words of the late Secretary General Kofi Annan on corruption. And this is what he said. Corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. It undermines democracy and the rule of law, leads to violations of human rights, distorts markets, erodes the quality of life, and allows organized crime, terrorism, and other threats to human society to flourish. End of quotation. Addressing corruption is no simple matter. The World Bank estimates that bribes alone cost the world economy about $1 trillion a year. And corruption, $3 trillion per year. So that bribes alone, US $1 trillion a year, and corruption $3 trillion. Corruption affects us all and can impair our value system, our rule of law, and good governance. Grenada and the Caribbean region are embracing and implementing anti-corruption treaties through a suite of legislation aimed at realizing a paradigm shift. In Grenada, the Prevention of Corruption Act 2007 sets out a legal framework which entrenches deterrence to a culture of corruption and behaviors that we previously took for granted. The Integrity in Public Life Act number 24 of 2013 is intended to entrench a culture of integrity in our public officials, officers, ministries, departments, and all other bodies. The new rules include a code of conduct. This new framework of accountability is supported by legislation such as the Ombudsman Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act, the Financial Intelligence Act, the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and our Criminal Code. Leaders of statutory bodies are responsible for their organization's governance, management, and leadership. So today, in this session, we will examine and review management practices to ensure compliance with our experts. Dr. Corrington, as we say, interim advisor and head of the public sector governance, and Mr. Dirk Harrison, chairman of CCAIC-ACB. I got it right this time. Who will share on today's key topics. These discussions are intended to provide guidance for carrying out your mandates in the most effective, efficient, and ethical manner. The Integrity Commission has been collaborating with our stakeholders through voluntary interactions with statutory bodies and departments which have received our questionnaire tools. We have also commenced investigations of some entities' operations. One positive highlight is the initiative of the Grenada Investment Development Corporation, the GIDC, which invited the Commission to review their draft policies on anti-corruption, conflict of interest, fraud, and bribery. These policies have since been finalized and published by the GIDC. We therefore applaud them for taking this initiative and commend such proactive steps in the fight against corruption. And we encourage other organizations like the GIDC to develop and ask us to help you all develop policies which would help in removing fraud, bribery, anti-corruption from your workplaces. Along with the FIU, we have also engaged in sensitizing government ministries and departments and public bodies on the issues of organizational risk management. This system requires the identification of risks, threats, and vulnerabilities of public-funded organizations. The Royal Grenada Police Force and the Customs Department have since implemented risk management departments, and we encourage other departments and ministries to do the same. Adherence to the observance of the public procurement and disposal legislation is also required. Your presence here today is a testimony of your willingness to take a stand against corruption and to be part of the implementation of Grenada's new framework of an anti-corruption and integrity system. In conclusion, I invite you to join on this journey of 1,000 miles. Indeed, may we commit to the single steps and goals to ensure the adoption, reinforcement, and implementation of effective practices aimed at the prevention and mitigation of corruption in your organizations. And finally, closing, I adopt the words of the Secretary General Kofi Annan. It is a big challenge, but I think that together we can make a difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I say, let us work together, because together we can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairman of Grenada's Integrity Commission, and certainly thank you for sharing some information on our Commission's functions and indeed some of our achievements. And I believe the Deputy Chair has really synopsized all the ingredients that certainly may be necessary if we are collectively to make that intended or desired paradigm shift as it relates to public sector management. So thank you, sir. Now, if we look at our program, our intention was to keep the opening ceremony very tight, very short, because we're going to go immediately thereafter into our first session for the morning. I know generally in conferences we have opening ceremonies and thereafter we have coffee break, but we're now going to change that. We're going straight into our first presentation. So prior to doing same, I would now just like to invite everyone as delegates around the table to just introduce yourselves. And because it is a regional training program, I would like you to very briefly state your name, your position, and organization and your country, because we do have a mixture around the table. So we're going to start. I believe I can see the cordless mic next to my colleague, Mr. Bagwan. So we're going to start on my right. Thank you, sir.
All right, good morning all. My name is Isaac Bagwan. I'm the Director of Post, Grenada Postal Corporation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Pitts, and I'm the Director of the Grenada National Museum.
Morning, everyone. Wilfred Hercules, General Manager, Gravel and Concrete.
Grenada.
Good morning. I'm Oforiwa Augustine, Commissioner, Grenada. Good morning. The name is Rohan Reed, Deputy Superintendent of Police, Jamaica, Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency.
Morning, everyone. Kumar Durasamy, the Chairman of the Integrity Commission of Guyana.
Good morning, everyone. Rosemary Benjamin Noble, Commissioner, Guyana's Integrity Commission.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Jaising, Secretary, Guyana Integrity Commission.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Williams. I'm Chairman of Grenada Cocoa Association.
Hello, good morning. I am Andrew Haslick, General Manager of the Grenada Cocoa Association.
Good morning, Kelvin Jacob, CEO, Spicemas Corporation, Grenada.
Good morning, Lydia Brown, Executive Secretary, Grenada Food and Nutrition Council.
Good morning, everyone. Joyce C. James. I'm the Office Manager for the National Stadium.
Good morning, Christopher Husbands, Nawasa.
Good morning. I am Winston James, and I am one of the new commissioners with the Grenada Integrity Commission.
Good morning, everybody. Alison Neptune, Acting General Manager, Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority.
Good morning, David Fleming, Interim Vice President, Academic and Student Affairs, Grenada T.A. Marisha Community College.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ann David Antoine. I'm the Chair of the Child Protection Authority, Grenada.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Dabrio. I'm the Managing Director, Child Protection Authority of Grenada.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Palestrina Roll. I represent Dominica Integrity Commission, and I am the Research Assistant.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jean Morrill. I'm the Secretary, Integrity Commission, St. Lucia.
Good morning. I'm Lincoln Morgan, the Chief Executive Officer of the Grenada National Training Agency.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melvin Lord, the General Manager, Grenada Development Bank.
Good morning, everyone. I am Devon Charles, Chairperson, National Stadium Authority and National Lotteries Authority. Thank you. Grenada.
Good morning. My name is Alistair Bain, Chairperson of the Grenada National Museum and Deputy Chair of the Bacalet Juvenile Center.
Pleasant good morning. My name is Kul Grant Hoshtialik. I am the Chairman of the Grenada Cultural Foundation, Grenada.
Good morning. I'm Genevieve Gibbs, Chairperson, Spicemas Corporation, Grenada.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shirma Wells. I'm the CEO of the Grenada Cultural Foundation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beth Ann George Buckmeyer. I'm the Manager HR Admin of the Grenada Authority for the Regulation of Financial Institutions.
Good morning. I'm Dennis Felix. I'm the Acting Chief Executive Officer of GAFIN. As Bethan said, Grenada Authority for the Regulation of Financial Institutions. Very long.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carl Felix. I'm the General Manager of the Grenada Ports Authority.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naja Andal, and I'm the Chairman of the Grenada Bureau of Standards.
Good morning, everyone. I am Robert Medford, Director, Grenada Bureau of Standards.
Morning, everyone. Ronald Theodore, CEO, Grenada Investment Development Corporation.
Good morning, all. My name is Leslie Ann Sion, Chairman, Grenada Investment Development Corporation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lawrence Samuel. I'm the coordinator for the National Telecoms Regulatory Commission, Grenada.
Very pleasant good morning to one and all. My name is Jeffrey Gilbert, General Manager, National Lotteries Authority, Grenada. Thank you.
Let me invite us all to give each other a big, big round of applause, as for some of us, including myself, we're actually putting faces to names, because you may have them listed on paper, but it's putting the right face with the right name. I think I met somebody in the lift coming up, and I was sharing with him how he looked very much like a Mr. X. The Mr. X is actually in the room, so just in case they don't really think they look like each other, I wouldn't mention the Mr. X. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to just share with you that we have distributed information packs. And just to bring to your attention some of the information that's within SAME, reference was made by our deputy to the Code of Conduct, certainly for Grenada's public sector. And we do have that in a leaflet form within the information packs. And also it makes reference to Integrity Commission's stakeholders, which we're striving to make as holistic as possible as we engage in our anti-corruption efforts. You do have a fact sheet that details about 8 items of the Integrity Commission's achievements during the last year. And just to share with you that this senior leadership and management training program, which we have indeed described as our virtual Center for Excellence series, has come about as a result of Government of Grenada agreeing to the invitation from the Integrity Commission and the Commonwealth Secretariat for Grenada to have a facility specifically donated, specifically geared towards anti-corruption training. Now, we have had some difficulties with the physical structure. However, in the meantime, and in order for us to progress our training programs, we have decided to refer to SAME as a virtual Center for Excellence, which can be hosted in any physical structure until such time that we actually have the devoted physical building in collaboration with our Department of Public Administration. All right, there's a brief profile of our Integrity Commission, which details our legislations, our functions, our code of ethics, etc. And you earlier on had up on the screen our systems hub, which details all the administrative and operational systems that we have put in place incrementally as we established our commission. And just to give you some idea of the work of the regional association, I've detailed the outcome of our conference from Jamaica in 2017. The conferences are annual. They commenced in 2015 and was inaugurated right here in Grenada. Thereafter, we've been describing the conferences as taking on the Grenada model. So we have done Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Turks and Caicos Islands, and this year, 3rd to the 7th of June, the annual conference would be held in Cayman Islands. And Grenada attends these conferences in partnership with our FIU as representatives. We also give you an idea of the kind of communique that results from the conferences. And finally, penultimately, the list of the suite of legislation that Grenada has enacted as it pertains to anti-corruption and various related functions. And finally, just some highlights of Grenada's achievements to date in relation to our anti-corruption mechanism, our public outreach and education programs, the filing of declarations, and it's declarations of income, assets, liabilities, and any interest in property. Our investigations of various entities. As you go through, you would see the mandates that the Integrity Commission has for so engaging. And finally, just to share with you that last year, no, 2017 actually, we did engage in the launch of a national logo competition and a mascot competition. And the winners of these two competitions came from our secondary schools. And we certainly had very good learning outcomes with the Chief Education Officer, the Ministry of Education for Art and Craft, assisting us with final outcomes. So the logo you'll see on all the documentation that we have shared with you, and there is a copy The logo, there's a poster outside that you can also look at, and also the mascot, which again was won by secondary school students. You can see some photographs of same when we launched both at our international anti-corruption event, which took place here in Grenada. And this is something that takes place annually throughout the world on the 9th of December. And we strive to implement that on the closest working day, which involves our stakeholders, our students, particularly our students, as we know, next generation that we are trying to also reach, and for them to be at the forefront of leading some of our anti-corruption charges. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now concluded our opening ceremony, and as I indicated, we would be going straight into our presentations. And at this time, I invite my colleague, Mrs. Dawn Walker, who is a compliance officer at Integrity Commission Grenada, to join me at the podium. Mrs. Walker will be chairing this next session. Mrs. Walker. So thank you, and I'll be seeing you from time to time during the course of the morning.
Thank you, Mrs. Sandy David. Good morning, all. I joined our chairperson in welcoming all to this morning's session. My name is Dawn Walker, Compliance Officer with the Integrity Commission, as mentioned. Our first session this morning will cover the topic, addressing weaknesses in organizational governance, and will run for approximately 1 hour. To share on this topic is our lead facilitator, Dr. Roger Karentang. Now, to give you a little bit of Dr. Karentang's profile, Dr. Karentang is the advisor and head of public sector governance at the Commonwealth Secretariat. He is also the principal specialist responsible for governance and anti-corruption at the Commonwealth Secretariat, and therefore responsible for governance, anti-corruption in all the 53 Commonwealth countries in Africa, Caribbean, Pacific, and Asian regions. Dr. Karentang has, over years, promoted and championed anti-corruption in the Commonwealth member countries, as well as non-Commonwealth member countries. His anti-corruption work is recognized globally. Dr. Karentang, or Dr. K, as we affectionately call him here at home, has established the following organizations. 2011, the successful and vibrant Association of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Commonwealth Africa to promote inter-agencies collaboration and learning through the sharing of experiences and best practices. 2013, the Commonwealth Africa Anti-Corruption Center in Botswana. The center is a prime vehicle for building and strengthening the capacity of anti-corruption agencies in Commonwealth Africa. 2015, the Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrity Commissions and Anti-Corruption Bodies right here, home in Grenada. The association provides a unique forum for sharing experiences, good practices, and benchmarking country efforts in fight against corruption and the promotion of good governance in Commonwealth Caribbean. Dr. K is the proud winner of the 2018 Global International Recognizing Anti-Corruption Award, recognizing persons annually who have not only demonstrated commitment to the prevention of corruption globally, but also their dedication to the Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations. Dr. K holds a PhD in Public Policy from University of Birmingham, UK, an MA degree in Public Policy and Administration from Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, Netherlands, postgraduate diploma in Public Administration, GIMPA, Ghana, postgraduate diploma in Environmental Studies, University of Oslo, Norway, and BA Honors, University of Ghana, Accra, Ghana. Dr. K is married with children. As our chair mentioned, This is the third day, actually, Dr. Key has been with us here. On the first day, he shared with us on the topic Public Sector Management Systems, a Deterrent to Corruption, Parts 1 and 2. And so we had a lot to take from that session, just reminding us that it is not enough to make laws and policies and just leave them on paper. And so prevention is cheaper than deterrent. On day 2, he shared on the topic conflict of interest management in keeping with international best practice. And so we were encouraged that professionals should be objective and independent. Decisions should be based on merit. And so you should not use your position and resources for private benefit, personal gains. And so to take us into that, our session today, addressing weaknesses in organizational governance. And when when I heard that Dr. Carrington got the award and we got that information, I went online and I Googled and I saw this thing, what does it take to be an anti-corruption hero? And I read, and it was interesting. Some persons giving their opinion some said passion, commitment, endurance, love for people. One even said dive with the sharks. I thought that was funny. But the one that hooked me, or the one that got me, is that you have to give your soul, your heart, your time, your efforts, everything in that. And so I guess that is what our Dr. Carrington did. And so I'd like to invite Dr. K to the podium to take you through that session. And just to share with you as well that he will facilitate questions through the presentation. And please, when you ask your question, you are asked to state your name, your organization, and your job position for records. Thank you, everyone. And Dr. K, invited.
Thank you so very much for the introduction. Thank you. And once again, good morning. I'm happy to be here again. I think some of the faces are quite familiar with me because I think I've met you in my previous life. My session is 1 hour, so my 1 hour is now going to start from now. It's not the time that is on that program, because then that means I should be ending in the next few minutes. So I always want to make that point clear, that my 1 hour on the timetable starts from the time I'm starting, not the time on the program. Because the topic that have been given to me is quite broad. I was given organizational governance. First, I was a little wondering what organizational governance is. So I went back and do my research. I said, wow, it's corporate governance. Because corporate means organization, which means it is well known. Otherwise, for organizational governance, and I was wondering whether it's democratic governance or authoritarian governance or deceptive democracy governance, whatever it is. But when we talk about corporate governance, it makes a lot of sense, particularly given the fact that the kinds of people that is coming for this particular session. But we're not going to talk only about corporate governance, but we should also talk about good corporate governance, because I think that's what makes sense to us. Because corporate governance, you can have very bad corporate governance, but we are interested in the good one. I have so much information on that because I've delivered a couple of sessions on corporate governance around the world. I think my last one was in Seychelles. So what I'm going to do, I think the 1 hour given to me is not going to be enough. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you all the information that you can take as a reference material, because I'm not sure I can do justice to the topic corporate governance within a limited 1 hour. particularly when we also wanted to have discussions. I think I have to tell my organizers that anytime you invite me and you want me to do justice to topic, don't give me 1 hour, because that is not going to be appropriate for, particularly when we want to hear from, we want to make it participative, bring the issues out, let's discuss it. So we're going to see how we could do it. So that's why this time around I decided not to share any jokes, because normally if you know me, I share jokes. But I don't have time for jokes because the time is so limited. So let's go straight to what corporate governance is all about. We have to start from the evolution of it. The evolution of corporations. Because corporate governance comes from the word, how you manage corporation. Now, what is corporation? To begin with, in the earlier times, the educational and religious corporations were given considerable independence and perpetual existence to evade all the all-encompassing power of the king. If you look at the whole world setup, be it governance in some of managing people, managing countries, managing states, everything emanated from the king, the monarch. In fact, one of the things British have given to the whole world is our systems. Whether it's America, whether it's Russia, whether it's Africa, Caribbean, wherever, everything emanated from the British monarch. The way they manage and the progress they made over time, from Magna Carta, when the king was forced to give away some of his powers because he was more or less God, the king at the time. His word is the law. And I don't want to go into the history of the monarch because most of them have mental issues. Yes, and the reason was this. There was so much inbreeding in the monarch because you were a monarch, you have to marry a royal. So they keep marrying themselves and marrying their cousins, distant cousins, immediate distant cousins, and very close cousins. So if you look at Queen Victoria I, she bore 12 children. And all these children, she married them off to all the monarchs in the world. So they are cousins. The Queen Elizabeth cousin is the Queen of Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, those who have been killed in the showers in Russia, the Greeks, everything. They are all cousins because you have to marry off into the royal family. So my point was that it was the king was everything. The monarch was everything. But they realized that some organizations, like the education and religion, was one of the first institutions that were established. And because the king was so powerful, they wanted to give these institutions some freedom from the king interference. So that's where the first corporation started coming up in the parlance of the world vocabulary. So later, corporations were set up to address the state's or the nation's specific needs, like establishing the colonies during the colonial era. So when the British imperialism, that is, imperialism means expansion, when they started expanding their authority around the world, they took the concept of corporation along with them. So initially, corporations were characterized by few wealthy people who negotiated among themselves, invest capital, and work towards maximizing their benefit. So if you look at corporation, it was set up by few rich merchant, businessmen, and women. Of course, those days, even women were not. So that's how it started. So corporations were within few rich people setting up businesses to manage and maximize their profit. However, in the 19th century, the rapid technological progress brought the idea of having larger firms employing hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. Another significant aspect during this era was the need for capital, which was earlier provided by very few wealthy members, but now proved inadequate to support the operations of these large firms. The result of these changes was the emerging acceptance of concept of private property, which was earlier unknown concept, as all properties were considered to be belonging to the state or the religious institutions like the church, like the Roman Catholic Church. So, corporation, as I'm saying, started with wealthy people. It got to a point because of the colonial expansion, they have to set up businesses and organizations all over the colonies around the world. The British Empire was everywhere. Sometimes in my work, I traveled to the Pacific, and it took me 3 days by travel by air. So I'm wondering those days when the British, that small island people, when they were going to that side, how long did they take? Now, you travel, and you don't see anything. All you see is water, body, ocean. So my goodness, where is this no man's land? You know, so you can see how British expanded themselves, overstretched themselves all over. And then when they have to set up businesses, the few people who had money to set up their businesses didn't have enough money to manage these organizations or set up this business. So now they have to expand private property. That means that now common people can also be part of. So they mobilize money. That time the banking system was not as developed as it is. That's why the concept of shareholding and all these things came in, because then anybody now who have a little money can put it into that company and you become a property owner or a private owner of that company. So that is how corporation came about. If you cast your mind back during the colonial times, you hear the colonial this, colonial organization, colonial that, you know, they were all over the place, particularly in trading and in merchant and shipping and all that. So the role of corporate governance has been more vital. How do you manage corporate governance? Study has consistently shown that having an effective corporate governance program in place support economic growth and help derive the efficient use of resources. It is at the top of the international development agenda, as emphasized by James Wolfensohn, former president of the World Bank. And I quote him, he says, the governance of companies is more important for the world economic growth than the government of countries. The governance of companies is more important than the governance of countries. Because you have certain companies whose assets and actual income or profit is more than so many countries put together. Look at Bill Gates. His wealth. And look at our GDP of most of our countries. Look at all these international conglomerates. Who owns resources, banking, media, industries? They are so much powerful, to the point that when they misbehave, as we're going to see, the whole world suffers. When certain larger-than-life banks collapses, the whole world, from US to Russia to Africa to Caribbean to wherever, we all suffer. So why shouldn't James Wolfensohn was right, that sometimes corporate governance, the way we manage certain companies, is more important. Because if you mismanage one small country in Africa, and you become stateless like Somalia, Who cares? But if you mismanage a big financial institutions, you see the repercussions. Of course, the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan described it best. He said, good corporate governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. He was right then, and he's right today. So what is corporate governance? It has so many definitions. But the most generally accepted one is the process by which companies are directed and controlled in the interest of its proprietors and other stakeholders. It is a system, another definition is system or systems, through which owners of public company, via the intermediary of their board of directors, exercise control and accountability over the management teams they employ. And I think that has been also another flashpoint all the time. The roles between the board and the management, particularly the CEO and the chairman of the board. That is the most flashpoint. If you are not careful to have a board who understands their role, then they will be micromanaging the organization. If you also have management or a CEO who does not understand the role of the board, and then they have a problem. Because when the board requests for information, it must be given. So we should understand the two. In fact, if you take the whole corporate governance landscape as I've seen around the countries, I've read it in the newspapers, most countries I've visited, there's always a conflict between the chairman of the board and the CEO of the organizations. And the bottom line is that both of them are illiterate as to their roles, period. Because some want to overreach. It is a system of structuring, operating, and controlling a company with a view to achieving long-term strategic goals to satisfy stakeholders or shareholders, creditors, employees, customers, and suppliers, and compliance with a regulatory requirement in addition to meeting environmental and local community needs. Somebody also make that long definition, which is true. Because part of corporate governance is what they call social responsibility, which means you are taking into consideration local community needs. It's not enough to make profit and walk away, but the community in which you are located, that you are able to make that profit, something should go back to them. Because why didn't you set your company in the bush where there's nobody? Why did you set your company in a city, in a community where somebody have to manage it? They have to pay taxes to make roads, put communication in place. You created the market. They've created a market. Then you decide to come and set up your company there. You make all the profit, and you want to walk away with that without putting something back. Because otherwise, you could have gone to some bush or somewhere where there's no human beings and set up your company and see whether you make any profit. So that is a concept of social responsibility. You didn't construct the road. You didn't create the city or the town or the community. But you are taking advantage of it. So give them something. Corporate governance is about the way in which organizations are and should control them. And these are the key players: the chairman of the board of directors, the chief executive officer, board of directors generally, the proprietor, that's the shareholders in case of companies, and managers and the rest of the employees. It's also about the process of governing, how decisions are to be taken, if by vote who has the right to vote. It has ethical issues arise in the area of corporate governance. For example, promotion of integrity, objectivity, equal opportunity, avoidance of bribery, corruption, conflict of interest, fraud, material errors, and creative accounting, and so on. Because if you don't do these things, the world will suffer. And we have seen examples of lack of good corporate governance that brought about the financial crisis. Period. What is the aim of corporate governance? It's increased profitability and efficiency of the corporation if you do it properly. Because your profit will be up, because if you put corporate governance in place, it will become very difficult for anybody to misapply or do illegal things, to leak or take away your bottom line. Enhance ability to create wealth for shareholders. Increase employment opportunities. Enhance legitimacy, responsibility, and responsiveness. It protects shareholders' rights. It enhances disclosure and transparency. It facilitates effective functioning of the board and provides an efficient legal and regulatory enforcement framework. When there is no governance program in place, the opportunity is created for individuals to make personal gains. When there's no good governance, no good corporate governance in place, that's why you have all the problems you have had in the world. For example, a procurement manager at a state enterprise that embezzles company funds. If that happened, that means there was no good corporate governance in place. Contract negotiations and obligations that are executed outside the framework of the Procurement Act. Mr. Harrison is going to talk about procurement later on, so you're going to delve more into that. Because one of the areas of most corruption, the most vulnerable areas of corruption is in procurement. Big time procurement, government procurement, procurement for construction. You get 1% kickback, you have millions. Procurement. It's one of the major areas of corruption. These are the direct results of weak internal controls and no poor oversight, and a disregard for the law. Public corporations with internal management weaknesses and poorly remunerated officials also provide receptacles for kickback payment from private sector institutions and other organizations that deals with them. In effect, weak corporate governance system provide various opportunities for corruption. But some jurisdictions, they take this piece of remuneration to the highest level, particularly in the private sector. You have chief executive officers in big-time private sector. Their salary alone is half of the total staff of the organization put together, their staff. So let's say if the total remuneration of the whole organization is, let's say, $1 million US. The chief executive alone can take 500,000, because for them, everything becomes better or fail because of that one person. That is particularly for the Americans. The British, the British corporate governance, they try to lower, limit the margin. But for US It can be as big as anything. Because that one person. But what I don't understand, having put my head around it properly, is that even when the company is failing, then they are paying so much money to these guys who has supervised the failure. I still don't understand why. Now, probably it's about contractual agreement. Before the person comes into the table, come into office, he will sign that this is what I'm going to get if you should kick me out or if I should go away. So I think it's a contractual agreement. It's like you sign the, what do you call it, when, before you marry a big man or a big woman. Aha. So that if the marriage fails, you have your security, insurance. Because if you be saying that in corporate governance, the most important person, the most important asset you have as an organization is the human resource. And that human resource for the corporate governance in the American psyche is one person, the chief executive. Because you see, if you want to get a market share, get a product that will sell and bring you billions, in American psyche, don't go and imitate that product like Russia, China would do. As for Chinese, they imitate. They can't invent. Americans, in fact, those who have the mind to invent in the whole world are 3 countries. They have the mind of invention. The first country in those days was United Kingdom. All inventions were from them, including the internet. They have been overtaken by another country, Israel. Israel had that kind of mentality that they can turn desert into whatever they want to by nature. That's why probably they call themselves the blessed country, and yet they are the most cursed country as well, because they have never seen peace in their neighborhood. Right? Go back to the Bible. The chosen people have never seen peace, but they have something. Anything they touch becomes gold. Then the Germans. The Germans also have this ability to invent. And the Americans. But you see, if you look at the Germans, Americans, and the Russians, and the Israelis, there's something common to these people. Can you think about what is common to them? The Israelis, the Americans, the Russians, and the Germans. What is common to them? A group of people. One group of people is common to Americans, Russians, the Germans, the Jews. The Jews, the Israelis. You know the Israelis were in Germany. And Hitler realized that these guys are so powerful, they can invent anything, they control the resources, so let's get rid of them. Let's get rid of them. So what happened? They fought and they beat them. And then, when after the Second World War, 2 countries who were victorious, the Soviet Union and the Allied, took half of the Jewish to Israel, to America, and then half to Russia. They are those who are inventing things. So that is what it is. Those nuclear things, whatever, Einstein, you name them, they are all Jewish. You go to the Russian Jewish, they are doing the same thing Americans are doing, because they are the same people. Only that American capitalism gives them more opportunities. But the Russians are close by the same people. If you look at them, the same people, the same, those who are left in Germany are doing the same thing. Does it tell you something? That God is real? Anyway, that's just by sidekick, because I thought I should make this point clear. There was a competition as to who can develop atomic bomb between Russia and America. And it was the Jews who were doing this. Of course, American was able to do it first. But the same people. So, in effect, weak corporate governance system provide various opportunities for corruption. Noted. We have had scandals of weak, bad corporate governance in this world. Scandals have caused a rapid decline in investors' confidence, caused government to over-legislate, over-regulate, and over-prosecute, and inspired state officials to enter the fray of political advantage. You see, when the businesses doesn't want over-legislation, over-regulation, because you limit them about being creative. But the world also cannot sit back for them to plant, since the management of companies is more important than management of countries. They have to do something. So blame for the scandal is laid on a widespread abandonment of adherence to ethical obligations among corporate leaders. So following the widely known fraud of Enron and WorldCom came scandals discovery in the mutual and hedge funds industry, sham biddings, schemes by insurance companies, and deliberately misleading accounting statement by mortgage giant called Freddie Mac. All this bad corporate governance plunged the whole world into chaos. So the doctrine of good corporate governance gained popularity or popular support after the fall of major companies in the United States and Europe. Several legislations and principles have been put forward by central government and stock exchange authorities to protect companies from collapse arising from bad corporate governance. Hence, the following are the issues that necessitate the importance of good governance. First, it helps to reduce and eradicate or prevent fraud. Two, it will expose, prevent, and reduce corruption. It will improve the perception of stakeholders that the company is openly managed, which might attract them to invest more in it. It will promote market confidence, so that potential investors will be attracted to companies with good corporate governance practice. It will lead to good performance of companies, which will help them to achieve objectives and remain successful going concerns. So the characteristics which are important in the development of an appropriate moral stance include the following: fairness. Should be fairness in corporate governance. You, the chief executives, should be fair in your operations. There's nothing like being smart here. Because you see, in this modern way, when they say you are smart, that means you have an ingenious ways of cheating. When you cheat and you are not caught, then you are smart. Should be fair. There should be open transparency. Your books in the Freddie Mac and WorldCom and the Enrons, auditors went into and certified as a true reflection of their financial statement, yet it was not true. Now, why would they do that? A big-time auditing accounting firm went and audited a book or the books of these giant corporations, and they lied. Even though they were in red, they said they were making a huge profit. That should attract more investors. Why would they do that? Do you know why? Corruption. But what was driving that corruption? Why would the a reputable audit firm or accounting firm will audit organization, even though they are saying that it's a true reflection of state of affairs financially, and it was wrong. They were in red. Why would they do that? Tell me. Do you have an idea? Why? What was the motivation? Greed. I want to say, no, I want us to break this greediness thing to the letter. Why was, what made them do that? It is because they want to be given the jobs every now and then. When they say you are, your company is not performing, and you say the truth, it means you won't be given the next contract. Period. Lie, and you continue to be given the assignment. You get your millions to lie. Period. That's why they were doing that. Open transparency, independence, probity and honesty, responsibility, accountability, reputation, judgment. I'm saying the details are there. I'll give the handouts to you so you can read the details to know. But these are all kinds of key things we should ensure. Integrity. Your judgment should be right. Role of the board of directors in promoting corporate governance. A real understanding of the relationship between organization stakeholders and those entrusted to manage its resources and to deliver its outcomes. First, there must be effective board. Does the board have clear objectives and monitor its performance against them? Or they just come to the meetings and get their sitting allowances and go away because all of them are political appointments, political appointees. They have no clue the organization they're supposed to be managed. That is the problem we have, because it's job for the boys for you to become a board member. Now, how do you do that? How can you ensure any meaningful benefit or direction from the board when they are interested in sitting allowance? Is the board focusing on the correct areas for its decision making? Is the chairman leading the board effectively, or is interested in the position of the chief executive? Undermining the chief executive, go behind the chief executive and give instructions to the staff. Sometimes I was given the opportunity to talk to the board chairman alone. I had a program, and I gave it to them. They were looking at me and said, "Where is this guy coming from? Why is he insulting us like this?" But the point was that I asked them, "Is it correct?" They said, I said, you say it. What I'm saying is not true. Tell me it's not true, that you people have no clue about what you're supposed to be managing. And you just give the chief executives hell. You have to be schooled. In fact, if I have my way, all board chairmen should be schooled before they get appointment, including board members, including also the chief executives themselves, so that you know your rules, so that you don't think that the board asks for information you don't want to give. Does the board provide a challenging yet supportive environment? For the chief executive or the executive directors? Is there a full discussion before major decisions are taken? Is the board meeting schedule suitable for the needs of the business? Does the board receive board papers of the right length and quality? Are they provided in a timely manner? How have key board decisions turned out? How could the board decision process be strengthened for future? Is there a thorough boardroom appraisal process with a follow-up plan action? The board themselves, do we evaluate the board members themselves as to their contribution to the organization? How much dollars have they brought to the organization being on the board? What contribution has each board member can actually say this is my success criteria. This is what I'm able to do by being a board member. No, it's about time. You cannot do the same thing and expect a better result. It's about that time you change if you want to grow and develop. The board should meet sufficiently regularly to discharge its duty effectively. There should be a formal schedule of matters specifically reserved for decision. Directors should receive accurate, timely, and clear information. Management should provide such information, but directors should seek clarification and application. The chairman should ensure that the board, the directors continually update their skills and have the knowledge and the familiarity with the company required to fulfill their roles on the board and this committee. They need training. Sorry.
On that last one there, but
yeah.
Do the board members get enough remuneration to go through all that time and effort they have to put in?
Yeah, of course. The board, well, I don't know, but if we sit in a private company board, they get a big remuneration. I don't know about the public sector statutory bodies kind of stuff, but board members, I know some board members who take so much. And also, most of the board, you know, we have two types of the board members, the non-executive board members and the executive, I mean, those who are within, members of the board who are also management, and those members of the board who are outside management. But yes, so the remuneration and everything must be discussed so that they can do their work well. I believe that we should pay people well for them to discharge their duties. Because if we pretend to pay workers, they will pretend to work for you, period. It's as simple as that. If you pretend to pay them, they will also pretend to be doing the work. So the chairman should ensure that views of the shareholders are communicated to the board as a whole. The chairman should discuss governance and strategy with major stakeholders. The chairman should hold meetings with the non-executive directors without the executive present. The non-executive directors are those directors of the board members who are not part of the organization management. The board should undertake a formal and regular annual evaluation of its own performance and that of this committee and individual directors. Where directors' concerns about the running of the company or proposed action cannot be resolved, they should ensure that they are recorded in the board minutes. Briefly, the community members want jobs. That means what the community or the society benefit from for the corporation. The community members, what they want, once you set up the company in their area, they want jobs, which will give them some decent income and wage, as well as which challenge their ingenuity and creativity. Community members also want their share of interest in the corporation, either as an employee, shareholders, suppliers, creditors, or just as neighbors. Because you see, when you set up the company, they try to make sure that the community members benefit. They need goods and services which are of decent quality, and they want safe and healthy work environment. Because some of the companies also, they don't take environmental issues seriously. In a public limited or private companies, needs to have a board of directors constituted for the purpose of oversight and accountability to the company. So the concept of board of directors is that it provides guiding body under which a company can operate in and ensure that the decisions and actions taken by its management are reviewed. So the reasons for the existence of a board of directors is that there's a need to be a body that is above management and which can be accountable to the regulators and shareholders for the decision taken by management of the company. Hence, it is common to find many members of management sitting on the board as executive directors. And again, it is for this very purpose that the regulator deemed the company to have a certain percentage of directors in the non-executive capacity who are independent. So the main point here is that the board is supposed to defend and support management. They are not supposed to fight them. There shouldn't be any antagonistic relationship between the board, particularly the chair and the executive, the management or the chief executive officer. When that happens, the company cannot move on. How much time do I have? Sorry? 10? Okay. All right. So, yeah, the board of directors, you can go through all this because it's very explanatory. Some areas to consider. The board agenda, particularly for the board meetings. Successful board meetings. The board agenda should strike a balance between long-term strategic and short-term performance issues. All directors should have the opportunity to put item on the agenda. Agenda topics should be supported by concise, informative papers and key points highlighted. Alternative course of action should be proposed where relevant and risk associated with proposed decision should be noted and discussed. Ensure that papers are distributed in good time. Hold regular meetings, including strategic away days. Get out of the office environment and go and discuss strategic issues, maybe annual review meetings. Directors should come to the meeting well prepared. There are some meetings, so many of the meetings that I've seen I've attended to where members of the board and members of the members don't even read anything before they come and sit on the meeting. You don't prepare. The chairman should focus discussions around the principal issues in each agenda paper. All board members should feel able to contribute at the meeting, and they should do so because it's important we hear their voice. But when you are not preparing, when you have not prepared, how can you go to the meeting? And you make a fool of yourself. The only thing you do is that I support the person who has just spoken. You support him on what basis? I concur. Major decisions should only be taken after full discussions at board meetings. So there's also a checklist of the board performance objectives, checklist. What has been the board contribution in the development of the strategy? What has been the board contribution to robust and effective risk management? Is the composition of the board and its committee appropriate? That's the question. Because garbage in, garbage out, GIGO, is a very common computer parlance. You see, computer will not change anything you put in. If you put in rubbish and you want to retrieve, you're going to retrieve rubbish. So if you put garbage as board members, what are you going to expect? So it's important, I think, our authorities also should understand and help them to understand that they should select board members who are able to contribute meaningful to the forward movement of the organization. Otherwise, it's like a boat going in circles. In fact, some of them, they will not even help you, but they will draw you back. Some of them, even if they are not literate enough about the organization and they keep off, you are okay, you are better off. But some of them, they use their illiteracy to drag you down. You can't go forward because you have to go to them. Then you are in trouble. So yes, all these checklists, you can go through them. Characteristics of good board director of board. How would you know that your board is good? Do they ask difficult questions? Do they work well with management team? Do they have industry awareness where they are being board members? Do they understand even the business that you are doing? Is it available when needed? Has business knowledge? Contribute to the committee's work? Attend meetings? Speak out appropriately at board meetings? Prepare for meetings? Make long-range planning contributions and provide overall contributions. So there are 5 important criteria where public sector boards regards as essential for evaluating board members' performance. 1, understanding of the company's mission and strategic plan. The board members, do they even understand? A comprehensive of the organizational business, a comprehensive of the organization's business. A willingness to challenge management when required. A willingness to appraise the chief executive. And a special expertise that the board members have to add value to the company. Independence of the board. The executive board should ensure that the organization is conforming to the legislative and government policies and achieving agreed outcome and so on. There's also ethical framework. Integrity is to be the principle underpinning good corporate governance, otherwise the company will collapse, period. So ensuring a suitable balance of power exists on the board of directors, particularly between the chairman and the chief executive officer, such that none of them occupies both positions. One of the things I've seen, they call themselves, executive chairman. If you are executive chairman, what does that mean? That means you are the chief executive officer and also the chairman of the board in one person. And I've seen that, and nobody is saying anything, because that is disaster. You take the decision himself, and you go and implement it himself. It's not accountable to anybody. It's a very bad good corporate governance system that we have. So, as I'm saying, in conclusion, we can reiterate that holders of public office and corporate leaders should be mindful of the fact that they are accountable for their decisions and actions and must submit themselves to whatever scrutiny is appropriate to their organizations. And that is good governance, good corporate governance. So good corporate governance ensures corporate success and economic growth. True progress of organization can only occur when the board and the management coexist together harmoniously. There's no way the company can make progress if the chairman and the chief executive is at loggerhead. Then what is going to happen is that the staff or the employees are also going to be divided right in the middle. Those supporting the chairman and those supporting management. Good corporate governance also minimizes wastage, corruption, risk, and mismanagement. Thank you. So at this stage, if there are some few burning questions, because there were so many areas I covered, some of them I ran through, because you're going to get the handouts and use it anyhow you want. But if there are some few, 1, 2 questions you want to bring to my attention, this is the time. Otherwise, you forever hold your peace so that I can lie peacefully also. Yes, please.
Because if somebody is invited to be a board member,
yeah,
and you already have a full-time job, and you already appointed it to 2 or 3 boards, you don't have the time and the interest to do what you have to do properly. So should you then decline the invitation to be another board member?
You are very correct. In the Commonwealth, I've seen countries, I've seen some few people who are being recycled all over the place. The same person is there. No, look, it's not right. Because can't give you the full time. In fact, as you rightly said, the onus is not a person to say, no, I have enough. I'm on this board, on that board, so I can't take this one on. I think we should be sincere of ourselves and our limitations as a human being. You know, because you can't be on so many boards. The same people, they recycle them. It's not right. You should give, and that are reason because we don't train people succession plan for board members. We don't train them. You should be able to have some regular DPA. And if you have Institute of Directors, I don't know whether you have them here, they should take over some of these training and train boards. People prepare young, not young, but up and coming people to take those responsibilities. Otherwise, you're going to recycle the old men and old women who have retired and are tired to be on the seat. When they come to board meetings, they sleep. Anyway. Yes, sir. You have a loud voice enough, so you could have.
Thanks. I think it was a very good, an excellent presentation. I think it's very interesting and very practical because it's kind of close to us. But from my observation, you stress training for directors. The training areas and the training programs that I'm aware of in Grenada and the region, they're pretty expensive for directors. Those that would give you a certification and so on. Does anything exist within the Commonwealth arrangement for whether you have established programs that you can pass on so that locally we can do those training? Because those that I'm aware of, they're pretty expensive.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, yes, if you want to go to do those kind of training because you are going by the name, you see, it's like going to the marketplace and you are driving the latest Mercedes-Benz. Immediately the price goes up. That is schools, they know it's directors who are coming. So it's not going to be cheap for you, even if they are going to teach you the fundamentals. What Commonwealth can do is that we can work with the DPA, the Department of Public Administration here, because those are our counterparts. Commonwealth work with institutions. Yes. As for integrity committees, commissions, we work with them on corruption-related things. But when it comes to training board on corporate governance, it goes beyond corruption to management issues, and that's why. Of course, my entry point to Grenada was through the integrity commissions, and they brought me the DPA. But I think that collaboration can still on. They can invite and they can ask us to come and do a program for directors. It can be about 2 weeks, first phase, second phase, and third phase, because that's what we do around. In Singapore, Malaysia, Seychelles, we go and do direct training for directors, board members, and we do for also chief executives. And then we bring them together because you have to bring confrontation. What is it that the board chairman, the chairman will say, this is what the management or the chief executives are doing that we don't agree. And then the chief executive also will say, this is what the chairman micromanaging, going behind me and doing all kinds of stuff. So then we put them in their lane. Everybody should be in your lane. Don't cross. Otherwise, if you cross, you get accident. You see? So we could do that if the request comes. So yes, I think it's a good, and that one, you don't have to pay anything. We'll bring the resource persons, and then we can deliver. When you go to those areas, what you pay so much for, Commonwealth, you don't pay. So that is it. I think last question, because I think time is almost, otherwise you forfeit your...
Thank you very much for a very forthright and interesting session. There were 3 or 4 points that you raised which resonated with me significantly. By the way, I'm chairman of Grenada Investment Development Corporation. The first point, the most vulnerable area is procurement for construction. It's a major concern for me because part of the work that we do involves construction, repairs, maintenance, etc. Weak internal controls, no oversight or disregard for the law. What kind of recommendations can you offer for those of us who wish to put mechanisms in place or processes in place to ensure that we are following not just the legislation with respect to the procurement process, but also adhering to ethical obligations.
Yeah, that's right. The starting point is you follow the rules of the game. Like if it's procurement, I'm sure you have procurement regulations, which is Mr. Harrison is going to deal with. But basically, good corporate governance ensures all this that we're talking about, the issues. Procurement of goods, services, and works is the most vulnerable place in terms of corruption. And therefore, your procurement rules and regulations should be followed properly. And I think I'll leave that one to Mr. Harrison, because he's coming to do that. For in terms of internal controls, I think what you have to do is that you have to invite probably the Integrity Committee or those people, or even the Commonwealth, to come and do vulnerability assessment to see your system and what are the areas that are prone to corruption, okay? Because that is the only way we can give you a tailor-made guide to be able to plug the loopholes. So basically, yes, it's an area that we need attention, because it's an area which is very, very important and close to every government. Should be concerned about procurement, construction, and the stuff like that. But we need to do the vulnerability assessment, risk assessment, and all that to know which areas, because you have to look at your processes and come out with which areas. In fact, some of them, you having the oversight, we will know some of the areas. And once you know some of the areas, then we're going to put the internal controls in place, and then we can make progress on that. So thank you. So I think on this note, much as I would have loved us to continue the discussion, I've been given a very strict warning that I should vacate and make myself unavailable. So thank you so very much for this interesting session. Thank you, Chair.
I believe that this was a comprehensive, thought-provoking, and I should say a passionate delivery of that presentation. It was delivered with passion. And there are many takeaways we can take from the sharing with Dr. K here this morning. Just a couple I'd like to highlight: that the governance of companies is more important than the governance of countries, and that the absence of weak corporate governance aids or leads to corruption. And so fairness, we should all try to apply fairness in good corporate governance. Yes? And on that note, thank you again to Dr. K and to the participants for your questions and for making that session very interactive. We now have a few minutes for just a stretch, just break. It's 10 minutes exactly. Ms. Sandy Davis is not, it's right now. And please remember to complete the attendance register and your participant form. We'll need to have that. We'll collect it very shortly. Okay, so thanks everyone again for being part of this morning session.
So thank you very much, my colleague, Mrs. Dawn Walker. May we give her a big round of applause, please, for chairing this session and following on from our excellent presentation. So this is the attendance register. It's a one-liner that ensure your names are on same in addition to your registration and evaluation forms. Mr. Aquino Bartholomew, who is our legal/compliance officer at the Office of the Integrity Commission, who will be chairing this session. Mr. Aquino Bartholomew.
Good morning again. So right now we have Dr. Corentine coming to do ethics and moral conduct. So without further ado, Dr. Corentine.
Thank you for inviting me. I like your brevity of invitation. That means you don't eat into my time. Again, it's 1 hour. So no, you have watch?
Yeah.
1 hour to check. So I don't want to eat into more time. So know when I'm ending. Okay, so we're going to look at a very, very important topic. Looking at an important topic which affect everyday lives. The things we do in the office, in the organization, in the community, in the family is so important. Because of lack of this concept called ethics, the world has suffered and is still suffering. Again, I want to make it known that because we don't normally teach ethics in our schools, from primary schools, secondary schools, in the universities, in a way that will build our values, we are losing our moral values all over. When the world suffered, the economic crisis happened, and they realized that because of lack of ethics, now ethics has become a major training program all over the world. So we're going to look at the concept, but before I do, I'm looking at what they call human greed, the story of heaven and hell. Somebody died and went to heaven, and before he went to heaven, he has to go to hell first because he was like going on a steady tour. Now, when he gets to hell, he could see that there was so much food on the table, and yet the people were starving in hell. So much food, everything that you can think of was there. Chicken, goat, sheep, mortar, whatever, steaks, everything. And yet the people were starving. They were so tiny. So what the man realized that these people cannot feed themselves. So he said, So he went, move on, say, okay, let's go to hell, heaven. When you get to heaven, he saw the same food on the table, but you could see that the people were eating. And they were plumpy, and they were, round faces. They didn't show any sign of starving, because they were full, and they were happy and content. So he now trying to understand why the same conditions were in heaven and hell, and yet the hell people are having problems. Then he realized that in the people, those people in hell and heaven, they have very long, extremely long hands. Their limbs, their hands are very long, the normal average human being hands. So when they take the food, they cannot get into their mouth. It goes behind them. Because their hands were so long that it can't get into their mouth. It goes behind their back. And you know, people in hell, because they are so selfish, that's why they got to hell. They are so selfish, and they were trying to feed themselves, and they couldn't do it. If you look on the screen, they are on the ground. They were doing acrobatic display as to how they can get to their mouth. So some of them were rolling down so that their hand can go around their neck and get into their mouth with their food. And they were not. So they were starving. Now when you go to heaven, what you realize is that they were feeding each other. Because my hands were so far away from my mouth, but I can feed you. Then you can take the food and feed me at the appropriate distances. So they were feeding each other. That's why they were now okay. But the selfish ones in hell, trying to feed themselves and take as much as they want or more than what they needed, like corruption. Corrupt people, they always take more than what they need, and yet they can't even finish eating like those in hell. So when you are corrupt, you are like hell. Nobody will tell me that anybody who have amass wealth through corruption is a happy person. You are always looking at your back, whether you'll be caught, whether somebody is coming. They fortify their rooms and their doors. They have security. You know, it's like a rich man and a poor man. A poor man, when they sleep, they don't lock their door. Because the poor man, what is in there for anybody to come and take? They are not concerned about security. It's only when you are rich, when you are afraid that somebody will come and take your property away, so you become a prisoner in your own castle. So that is the thing about corruption. When you are corrupt, you are like you are in hell. You are not happy. You can't have sleepless nights because you don't know whether people like Mr. Harrison and co will come knocking your door at midnight. All right, so let's look at the presentation today. We're going to talk about ethics, and we talk about ethics dilemma, and we talk about integrity, and we talk about moral conduct or moral dilemma, and then we conclude within 1 hour. I think this kind of presentations is one of the most popular presentations about ethics all over the Commonwealth. They keep asking for it again and giving it. So some of you might probably know a little bit more about that. But let's look at ethics. What is ethics? So in general sense, ethics is code of moral principles and values that governs the behavior of a person or a group with respect to what is right or wrong. That values, that moral values, that governs behavior with respect to what is right or wrong. You see, the child is born, he doesn't know what is right or wrong. A baby doesn't know what is right or wrong. They are neutral. Their brains are empty. In fact, even I'm told that in race, those who become racist, when they are baby, they are not racist. They go to school with black and white children, they play together. It's only when they get into teenagers, then they realize that, oh, you are different from me. Then the racism starts, and then their parents will be telling them, don't play with them, because it's different. But as a child, so as to what is wrong or right, we pick it as we move on in this life. And that is what ethics, it set the standard as to what is good or bad in the conduct and decision making. An ethical issue is present in the situation when actions of a person or organization may hurt or benefit others. So anytime you are in a situation, you are executive officer, you are head of organization, you are head of a department, and you have to take a decision, you should know that your decision, one way is going to hurt others, one way is going to benefit others. When you are in that kind of situation, ethics will come into play. That's what you should do. Now, as you know, for us to understand the issue of ethics, we should look at how human beings behave. Because ethics is all about behavior. Ethics can be more clearly understood when we compare behavior governed by laws and behavior governed by free choice. You see, every human being in the civilized community, the way we behave are governed by three things. The first one is the law of the land, the law of the country, the law of the community. If you want to drive, you have to get a license, driver's license. If you want to build, you have to get a building permit. Law. And that law guides or controls our lives only 1/3. 1/3 part of the human being's life is controlled by law. The way we behave, 1/3 of our behavior is strictly controlled by law. The other 1/3 of our life is controlled by free choice. Examples: the religion you want to attend is there's no law that restricts what religion you should go. The partner you want to marry, there's no law that restricts that. The food you want to eat, how you want to sleep. Some people, they sleep, they close their eyes. Some people, they open their eyes because they go for witchcraft in the night. there's no law. Free choice, half of your behavior in the world is your free choice. The food, religion, association, work. Some people, they don't want to work. It's their choice. So when you are poor, then you should know the consequences of your choice. So that's a free choice. 1/3 of our life is controlled by free choice. Then 1/3, the remaining 1/3 of our life is controlled by ethics. The ethics is not a law, it's not codified law, neither is it a free choice. But it is what? It is the norms of the society in which you live. Assuming we are all parents living in the society expects a parent to behave in certain manner. It's not a law, neither is it a free choice. Because if you don't behave, the society will say, oh, but he's a parent, look at what he's doing. For example, if you are a pastor, a man of God, there's no law of your behavior again. But the society will expect you to behave in a certain way that you shouldn't be a drunkard. You can't drink, become drunk, and be in the gutter as a man of God. What would the society say? So you see, if you do that, you have not broken any law. But the society will frown on such behavior. That's ethics. If you're a parent, they say, how can a parent behave like this? Even though you have not broken any law, the society will frown on that. So that will force you to behave properly. So you see, it's not a law, it's not a free choice that you don't care, I want to do what I want to do. No, you can't, because the society will raise an eyebrow of certain kinds of behavior because it's unethical. That's where ethics is coming from. So you see, in the domain of free choice, obedience to yourself and the way you behave is strictly dictated by yourself. How you want to behave is dictated by you. Free choice. In the domain of the codified law, obedience is to the law prescribed by the legal system. If you break it, there's a high sanctions for you. In the domain of ethical behavior, obedience is to unenforceable norms. It's not enforceable. And standards of which individual or the organization is aware. Unenforceable norms. Because they won't take you to prison if you drink and you are in gutter. In the gutter, nobody will take you into prison. But is it the right thing to do? So, pictorially, we put it this way. You see, the codified law is here. Free choice. You see, free choice, the devil is there. Deep blue sea, the rock, and the hard place. The serpent is there. He say, hey, it is a free choice. Enjoy. Drink your head out. Walk with your head. Do all kinds of things. And that's life. Life is sweet. Life is short. Because you have to enjoy. Or die, be die. You can die anyway. So why do you want to waste time? That's free choice. In between the two, you have ethics. Here. It's neither free choice nor law. It's norms of the society. This one is according to the society in which you live. In the ethics, in some society, you can do whatever I want to do. In certain society, you can't. So you have to observe the ethics of the society, the norms of the society. So you see, in terms of free choice, codified law, the sanctions is high. If you break it, you're going to. It's a continuum. The other end of the continuum is free choice, no sanctions, low. But in the domain of ethics, in the middle here, you have to exercise a certain level of control. Even if you want to do it, you have to check yourself. Because the society is going to frown on you. That this is not acceptable in our society. So you see where ethics sit and where ethics come from. So because ethical standards are not codified, means they are not written down. disagreement and dilemmas about proper behavior often occur. Should we or we should not? What is it ethical or unethical? Because it's not written. It's the societal norms. So when you move into that organizational level, where we push ethics into the workplace, then the principles of ethics and social responsibilities are widely recognized. Organizations do use code of ethics to govern behavior, thereby eliminating the need for additional laws and avoiding problems of unfettered choice. So code of ethics came because in the organization, we don't want you to say, oh, I didn't know that we don't do this here. So you write it down and give it to you. That's why code of ethics came into being. So that code of ethics is the do's and don'ts in every organization. Because you don't want the situation where I didn't know that here you can't steal. So I picked something from the organization and you said it's unethical. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that you can come to work anytime. I thought 8 hours, I can come 12 midnight and close 3 a.m. No, the working hours is 8 to 4:30. It's written down, you know, so that you don't want anybody in the organization to come and tell you that I didn't know. That's why Code of Ethics came into being. Now, when Code of Ethics came into being, then we move into another level called ethical dilemma, which arises in the situation where each alternative choice or behavior is undesirable because of the potential harms, ethical consequences. Right or wrong is not clearly identifiable. Now, you come to a situation where you are taking a decision. Whatever decision you take, somebody gets hurt in the organization. What will you do? That's a dilemma. You turn here, somebody get hurt. You turn there, you do, you don't do, somebody get hurt. Sometimes ethical decisions entails conflict between two groups. For example, as a mayor of your city, should the potential of local health problems resulting from effluent of a company that take precedence over jobs, it create as a city's leading employer? Interestingly, I went to a ride around Grenada here. I don't know the different parts of Grenada names anyway. But there was a place there was a little smell. And I think it was coming from a rum factory or something. Yes. And when I got there, it hit me. But people were all right. They were walking around. Anyway, it reminds me of this case study. Assuming that effluent coming from the rum factory is getting straight into the river, the only river that serves the community. And yet this very factory gives about 90% employment to all the citizens of the city. And as they have done in this particular case, the rum thing, they have tried to do all the things to reduce the pollution, to do what they have done, everything. There's still pollution. You have only two choices: to close it down or let it operate. What will you do if we create 90% employment and you have done everything to clean it up? You have exhausted every option in the world. The only option left: two, close it or let it operate. And if you have the authority to take that decision, what decision are you going to take? Will you close it or will you let it operate? Recognizing that it creates 90% of employment. And there's no alternative employment to the people. What will you do? Any idea? To tell me to close this one, you don't have to justify your decision. Just tell me I will close or I won't close. That's all that I want. Will you? Let it operate, yes? That's their decision. Is that the decision of the group to let it operate? Poisoning the very river you are drinking? Sorry? But pollution means poisoning. Why is the same word? You are sitting on a time bomb because you are poisoning the river and you are drinking this river. Sorry? Okay. So he said you relocate. That means you close down the city and move to another place to go and build new houses and other things. Is that you do have the money for that? I'm trying to bring to your attention what ethical dilemma is. There's no right or wrong decision in this case. Everywhere you turn, there will be problem. If you close it, unemployment galore. People are going to starve to death because no alternative employment. If you don't close it, people are sitting on time bomb. You're going to explode. In fact, it will take a longer period, but they're going to die anyway. That is a dilemma. Okay. Because I'm bringing this to explain to you, a dilemma is not even a difficult decision. A difficult decision is that I'm the judge, you are my brother, you have committed offense, I know what I should do, the sentence guidelines is there. That is a problem for me, but it's not a dilemma, because I know what I should do. Either I recluse myself or I will say, no, I can't sit on it. But this one, whether you like it or not, if you do it, problem. If you don't do it, problem. That is a dilemma. Okay, now that we know what a dilemma is, we can make progress. So how managers faced with these kinds of tough ethical choices often benefit from normative approach, one based on norms and values that to guide their decision making. Now, normative ethics use several approaches to guide ethical decisions. One of these is that relevant to managers is what you call the utilitarian approach. The utilitarian approach, what you can use to deal with ethical dilemmas. Now, the utilitarian approach says that it holds the view that moral behavior produces the greatest good for the greatest number. The utilitarian approach says that when you are confronted with these kinds of ethical dilemma, take a decision that will benefit or save majority of the people and let the minority suffer, even death. It's all right. Because you can't save all of them. So your decision should go to support majority, to benefit them. Greatest good for greatest number. So under this approach, the decision maker is expected to consider the effect of each decision alternative on all parties and select the one that optimizes the satisfaction of the greatest number of people. The utilitarian ethics was the basis for the state of Oregon in U.S. decision to extend Medicaid to 400,000 previously ineligible recipients by refusing to pay for high-cost, high-risk procedures such as liver transplant, bone marrow transplant. They have a specific budget for Medicare. Now that budget, if they use to cure an expensive procedures, they can, the budget will be exhausted by only 40 people. But if they also use it to cure less expensive but widespread diseases, they can save 400 people. So they make a decision that now they are not going to save the 40 people, but they'll save the 400 who have lesser ailment, but it still can't kill them. That was a decision they made. So they saved the 400. Now, critic also says that, or you say, although few people needed these procedures have died, the 40 died because they won't save them with bone marrow and all that. Because the state will not pay. Many people have benefited from the medical services they would otherwise have had to go without. But the critics of the utilitarian ethics question whether the common good is not squeezing the life out of the individuals. The critic also claimed that the Oregon decision does not fully take into account the concept of justice towards the unfortunate victims of the life-threatening disease. So the 40 people, they don't have justice. They don't have to live. But you see, as I'm saying, for a dilemma like this, wherever you turn, somebody get hurt, somebody. What would be the alternative for the utilitarian approach? The alternative is individualism approach. Individualism approach in this case, what would have happened is that you're going to do first come, first serve. So if all the 40 people come quickly and they exhaust the money, then 400,000 will die. But of course, you can say that's justice, the first come, first serve. That is another alternative. But the utilitarian one says that make a conscious decision to save majority. Let majority benefit at the expense of the few. The individuals who must take an ethical choice in an organization is called moral agent. Consider the dilemma facing the moral agent in the following situation. A top employee of your small company tells you he needs you to provide him with health insurance and some time off because he has a killer disease. Granting his request will open the floodgates to many other employees with similar problems. You know the employee needs the job as well as the health insurance benefit. Providing health insurance has already stretched the company's finances, and paying this premium will cripple the company financially. Should you accept this offer, what will you do? You have a small company, you set yourself with all your resources alone. You have employees, particularly one of them that we have worked with you for a long time. He comes to you and say that, you know the epidemic that has struck this organization. I have this killer disease, just like others. But I want a time off and some money, insurance, to go and sort myself out. But the problem there is, if you allow him, you have to allow by company policy, you have to allow everybody else. Now, when you also allow everybody else, that means your company will collapse because you're going to use all the money to do this. So as the owner, your choice is clear. Should you allow him or not to allow him? Allowing him means your company will collapse. Not allowing him means that he's going to die. What are you going to do? Pray to who? Oh, to God. To do what? You see, I will leave the discussion to your own judgment. I won't ask anybody to commit, because this one is a tough one. Somebody will say, I will save my company because I sweat, I don't want to lose it. So the people can go, they can die off, I can get new employment, new employees. Somebody say, my conscience, I'm so religious, I can't see how I can save life. It's not part of me. So doesn't matter, I will pray and collapse my company and save lives. So be it. There's no right or wrong here. It depends on, in ethical dilemma situations, there's no right answer. It depends on what is comfortable with your conscience. Period. If you can live with your decision, go with it. Because there's no right or wrong answer in ethical dilemmas. That's what it means. So, in terms of ethical development and moral development, officers bring to specific personality and behavior traits to the job. Personal needs, family influence, religious background, all shape managers' value systems. Specific personality characteristics such as ego, strength, self-confidence, and a strong sense of independence may enable manager to make ethical decisions. One of the most important personal traits is the stages of moral or ethical development. We have three of them, 3 stages: pre-conventional level, high moral development level. In fact, after this short session here, you have to tell me where you are in terms of your ethical development, whether you are the pre-conventional or the highest level. So let's see. It's like a pyramid. The pre-conventional level of ethical development at the base. A lot of people are here. Conventional people is the middle level, not so many. Very few people get to the top, the high level of development. So let's look at the pre-conventional. At the pre-conventional level, individuals are concerned with external reward and punishment, and they obey authorities to avoid detrimental personal consequences. Listen carefully. At the pre-conventional level, people behave ethically because they have to obey authority to avoid detrimental personal consequences. In an organizational context, this level may be associated with managers who use autocratic or cohesive leadership style with employees oriented towards accomplishment of specific tasks. So that is the pre-conventional level. People are obeying, they're trying to be ethical. Conventional level, that's level 2, called the conventional level. People learn to conform to the expectation of good behavior as defined by colleagues, family, friends, and society. Meeting social interpersonal obligation is important, but work group collaboration is preferred manner for accomplishment of organizational goals. And managers use the leadership style that encourages interpersonal relationship and good cooperation. What is the difference between these two levels? Level 1, conventional level, and then level 1, pre-conventional level. What's the main difference? Have you seen a difference between the two? Sorry?
The speaks to a management style of inclusion. That's
Okay. In terms of ethical development, look, they say the first one, what I said was that the first one, people behave ethically in the organization because they are what? Afraid of punishment. So the conventional one, why did they do the second level? Why did they behave ethically at the conventional level? What is the reason why they behave ethically? Because, I like the word, but you didn't put it properly. I like the word socialization. Okay. They are doing that because they want to please their colleagues, their family, their friends, the society. They want to show to them that we are ethical. Yes, create that impression. You see, the first one, they are afraid because they know they will be punished if they don't behave ethically in the organization. The second one, not because they are afraid, but they want to impress their friends, their colleagues, and everybody else that, yes, I'm upright, I'm ethical, and I'm that. Now, the second question, these two groups, do they believe, are they ethical? Do they believe in ethics? No. They are pretending because of something, that's why they are behaving. If you remove those things from there, they will not be ethics. They will not be ethical. Then that will take us to the higher level one. At the high level one, the top one, the high level or the high moral development or the principle level, individuals are guided by an internal set of values and standards and will disobey unlawful rules and regulations that violate those principles. Internal values becomes more important than the expectation of significant others. So you see the difference. The difference at the highest level is that this time, what is driving them to be ethical? The values that they have where? Inside them. They believe is part of them. And that they will not change. Because if any decision that will violate any activity, any action that will violate those belief systems they have, they will not do it. You can kill them. But the point is that how many of us get to that level? So now you're going to tell me where you are. Whether you are afraid or you want to please or it's inside here. Nobody should tell me it's inside here because I know it's not there. I'll be the first one to say it's not here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, sir.
The question is, are we admonished to aspire to this highest level?
Yes.
I have an issue with that.
Okay, what's your issue?
The issue is, within myself, I may have a set of values that I believe are ethical, and I would not deviate from them.
Sure.
But those values, in the true sense of the word, are inhumane.
Give example.
Well, I don't want to speak of cultures and
Don't worry. It's academic exercise, so you can speak of anything.
So take up the recording. There are certain extreme groups.
Yes.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
That within themselves believe
Yeah.
what they are doing
Yeah.
is ethical and moral.
Yeah, sure.
But they are considered terrorists.
Yes.
And we would not subscribe to what they are doing.
Sure.
So they are aspiring to this highest level.
Yeah. Yeah, you are right.
But according to their beliefs and values.
Yes. At the highest level of ethical development, at that level, there's a thin line between good and bad. All those people who strap that suicide bombs, they are at that level. Because they believe that their religion has taught them to kill as a young man and go to heaven and get 7 virgins. If you couldn't get virgins on earth, what shows that you go to that place, you're going to get them? I mean, that's the mentality, but that's what their belief is. But that belief is they are socialized to believe that, because they were not born like that, but they were born into it, to that belief of their religion. And interesting, it's only maybe because that's why they say you can marry them. Because the old people, they don't do that. Because they already have their virgins on earth or their wives. But the young ones, they told them, do it and you go there, you get them. So that is a very, I won't put down any religion. I wouldn't going to do that. But that is what they've been socialized to believe. You see, if you have done a little bit of management, you know what they call the Maslow's principles of hierarchy. Okay. At the self-actualization level, the very top, it's the same thing as this. There's a thin line between sanity and insanity at that level when you get to self-actualization. Look at all those who get to the self-actualization. That means you have gotten everything that you want. Your needs have been fulfilled. You have all the monies. So what did they do? They said, well, everybody else wear clothes. So since I have money and I have to be different, I'm going to be naked. So they walk naked. Rich people. Or Michael Jackson said the whole oxygen, the world is polluted, so I'm going to sleep in gas chamber because I want to be different. You see, when you get to that level, if you're not careful, you cross over to insanity. That's what this one is. Once you get to that level, it becomes very dangerous. If you don't use it to save the world, but you can use it to destroy the world at that level, the highest level of moral development. You have to make a decision that power, that belief you have, will you do good or you use it to destroy the world? If you use it to do good, the world will benefit. If you are, say, anti-corruption person and you are at that level, you have become uncorruptible. Nobody can influence you, that the world will suffer, will benefit. But if you say, I'll use it to be corrupt, again, unstoppable. Like the cocaine dealers in Colombia. So that's what it is. So, majority of the officers operate at level 1, not many advance beyond level 2, and only few people reach level 3 at the stage of moral development. People at level 3 are able to act in an independent, ethical manner, regardless of expectation from others inside or outside the organization. Officers at level 3 of moral development will make ethical decisions, whatever the organizational consequences for them will be. You can even fire them, they won't do it. Minister can give them instruction, politician can give them instruction, they won't do it. Because it's wrong, it doesn't sit with them. Such people are few and far in between. You don't get them. And we want to look at the difference between ethics and integrity. Now, people seem confused about the difference between the two, ethics and integrity. So let's take a few minutes to explain the difference between the two. What is ethics? Ethics is an external system of rules and laws Many organizations have developed code of ethics that employees are expected to obey. Usually there are rewards when you follow the rules and punishment when you break them. So ethics is external. Why is it external? Because it's something they've written down. It's not from you, it's not from within you. They've written something down, do's and don'ts, and they hand over to you. In every organization, code of ethics is written on paper. And they hand it over to you. So it's not coming from within you. So it's external to yourself. What about integrity? Integrity is internal. System of principle which guides our behavior. The reward is intrinsic, it's inside us. Integrity is a choice rather than obligation. Ethics is obligation because it's rules and regulation written on paper. You are obligated to comply. Have we seen integrity written anywhere? Have we seen code of integrity written on any paper in any organization under this universe? If you have seen one, let me know, because I haven't seen anything like that. You have code of ethics, but you don't have code of integrity, because integrity cannot be written. It's written inside your heart. Integrity conveys, even though influenced by upbringing and exposure, integrity cannot be forced by outside sources. You cannot train people to have integrity by classroom. You can't force integrity on anybody. I can force ethics on everybody. Because if you don't do it, if I'm your boss, I'll sanction you. But for integrity, how am I going to know? Particularly when I see you only 8 hours in the office. Do I know what to do outside office hours? So integrity conveys a sense of wholeness and strength. When we are acting with integrity, we do what is right, even when no one is watching us. When you have integrity, you're always going to do right. In fact, my own concept of integrity or definition of integrity is that I call it consistency in character. Consistency in character. If you have integrity, people around you will vouch that if you are taking this wrong thing to this woman, we can vouch and promise that he will not accept, because you know who she is. And truly, truly, you live up to that, because consistency in character. Your no is always no, and your yes is always going to be yes, and we can vouch for that. That is integrity. It's not ethics. People with integrity are guided by a set of core principles that empowers them to behave consistently to high standards. The core principles of integrity are virtues such as compassion, dependability, generosity, honesty, kindness, loyalty, maturity, objectivity, respect, trust, and wisdom, on and on and on. It's within you. Virtues are the valuable asset, personal and professional assets employees develop and bring to work every day. If you have men and women of integrity in your workforce, then you have everything. The sum of all virtues in ethics and integrity is alignment. So what it means is that when you have ethics and you have integrity, possessing, because I want to finish off quickly, possessing a high degree of integrity means that our words and deeds are in alignment. That means your actions and your words are in alignment. You walk the talk, so to speak. What you say is what you're going to do. You are not going to be the pastor who preaches and goes and say, listen to what I preach, but don't do what I do. Because if you do that, you're going to have problems. Your words must match your actions. And when you do that consistently, then you have integrity. Now the question is that, could somebody be ethical and not have integrity? What do you say? Because from the explanation, it's obvious that you can be ethical without having integrity. Because integrity is within you. Ethical is outside. You just have to mechanically uphold to the codes without believing in them to avoid punishment. So that is what you have. You see, when we're talking about the moral development, pre-conventional, conventional, and high moral development, it coincides with the integrity thing. The people here are unethical. They are afraid, so they are not doing what ethics is supposed to even be doing. The conventional means that that's the norm. The normal thing everybody else does, they try to be ethical by pleasing everybody else. But when you get to this level, high moral development, that's where you are demonstrating integrity. Because now it is within you. It's no longer an external issue anymore. Now, the reason why you can be ethical without having integrity is this. You see, if you do not cross this line, this is a line between ethics and integrity. All this, everybody who is below the line, you have in ethics. You are observing the external do's and don'ts. And if you cross ethic line, you go up, you develop, you are now in the realm of integrity. If you do not cross the line and stay within prescribed ethical boundaries, you have ethics. However, if you stay within the boundaries of ethics code and not possess integrity, because if you stay here, below the line, you are ethical, but you don't have integrity. For you to have integrity, cross this line, this integrity level. Ethics is passive behavior. Just stay within the bounds. Stay here. Integrity requires action, rising above the ethical line. So anybody who stays within here, you can be ethical. Yes, you are doing all the right things according to the codes, but you don't believe in them. It's only when you believe in them, then you have integrity. Then you move above. So, let's look at this one. This is my last but one slide, then I'm done. Moral dilemma. The moral dilemma. Listen to this case. A new drug is one woman's only chance of overcoming an aggressive cancer. The doctor who invented the drug has made it available to the public, but at an astronomical price. Desperate to save his wife and unable to secure enough money for the drugs, Mr. Smith breaks into the doctor's office and steals the drug to treat his cancer-stricken wife. And his wife was cured. Question: if you were Mr. Smith, what would you do? To steal the drug or not to steal the drug? Yeah, that's why I said this is a moral dilemma. What would you do if you were Mr. Smith? Sorry? You do what? You still. So everybody is going to steal the drug to save your wife. You know, when I did this one, when I did this case in Malaysia, you know what somebody told me? This guy looked at my face. He said, it depends on how much I love my wife. Five more minutes, okay. You know, don't worry, you're having time. So the classic Mr. Smith dilemma depicts a situation in which competing moral values are pitted against each other. What are the moral values? To save your wife. You have Mr. Smith's behavior seems morally justified insofar as he has a moral duty to cure his wife, if at all possible. That is your responsibility. Another side of it is that stealing itself is wrong. So you see, you have competing. Do not steal. It's written. I leave that final judgment to you to decide whether you want to save your wife or you want to observe the principles of not stealing. Even the Bible says those. So that one, if you also want to go the Malaysian way, depending how much you love your wife, that will push you to go and steal for her, that's another. So the moral consent can sometimes lead to immoral behavior. The moral consent to save your wife or do something that is honorable may also lead to immoral behavior. So you have to always be mindful of that. And then the last one before I drop off today is this second one. You are a witness, eyewitness, not a witness, eyewitness. You saw it live to a crime. A man has robbed a bank, but instead of keeping the money for himself, he donates it to a poor orphanage that can now afford to feed, clothe, and care for its children. You know who committed the crime. If you go to the authorities with the information, there's a good chance that the money will be returned to the bank, leaving a lot of the kids in need. What will you do? You pass the money to the bank. And then the children will die because they will not have any support. You know the bank, nobody likes banks. Because they keep your money, they don't even give you better interest. So why do you want to do so good to this bank? Sorry? So that is a moral dilemma. In conclusion, I didn't resolve that answer. I leave it to your own judgment. Whether you want to return it to the bank or you want to keep it to, you live as if, you behave as if I haven't seen, I haven't heard. But when the authorities know that you were eyewitness, you'll be sent to court, concealing information, and they will charge you even aiding and abetting. So it's up to you, but you have to be careful. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, in leadership, we are asking others to follow us, trust you, sometimes even on uncharted waters. Now, when the leader lacks integrity and values, subordinates suffers and lose direction. So, on the other hand, leaders with integrity breeds or groom credibility, make it easier for others to respond, and like transformational leaders everywhere whose values guide them, they produce impactful results. The challenge is for us to be men and women of integrity, not as an exception, but as the norm in our society. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Quarantine. That was truly a great presentation. Key points to take from it: we got the definition of ethics, the categories of human action, the three categories actually: the law of free choice and ethical behavior. We have ethical dilemma, which is basically the gray area: damned if you do, damned if you don't. We have the moral agent, that will be the person in the organization with the responsibility to make these hard ethical decisions. And then we have the stages of moral development: the pre-conventional, conventional, and high moral development. So I guess each of us would have to look within ourselves and see which stage we are at. Next, we have Mr. Doug Harrison, who is the chairman of the CCAI-CACB, and he will be doing procurement matters and international best practice. Before he comes, I will do a reading of the biography of him. Doug Harrison is currently the assigned head of the Corruption Prosecution Division of the Integrity Commission, Jamaica. Prior to that, he was appointed Contractor General of Jamaica by the Governor General of Jamaica, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, on the 25th of February, 2013, where he performed the duties from the 1st of March, 2013 to February 22nd, 2018. As the Independent Commissioner of the Office of the Contractor General of Jamaica, Mr. Harrison was entrusted with the exclusive statutory authority on behalf of Parliament to monitor and to investigate the award and termination of all government contracts, licenses, and permits, with a view to ensuring probity, accountability, and transparency in the Jamaican public sector. He was vested with extensive statutory powers of investigations, inquiry, search, discovery, and subpoena. Prior to his appointment as a Contractor General, Mr. Harrison, who is a Caribbean-trained lawyer, was employed as a deputy director of public prosecutions at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Jamaica, with special responsibilities for the Anti-Corruption Unit, Coroners Unit, head of the Environmental Law Unit, and he is one of the government experts for Jamaica for the implementation of the UNCAC, which is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption Review Mechanism. Whilst at the office of the DPP, Mr. Harrison also held positions as a part-time lecturer at the Justice Training Institute of the Ministry of Justice, and previously tutored at the Norman Manley Law School in advocacy. Before joining the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Harrison worked as a clerk of courts in the parish of St. Mary. Mr. Harrison has had extensive training in the fight against fraud and corruption, as well as judicial and prosecutorial enhancement training. Mr. Harrison is a graduate of Jamaica College and a former student of Excelsior Community College. He is the holder of a BA in History with honors and a LLB with honors from the University of the West Indies. And he has a legal professional qualification from the Norman Manley Law School. Mr. Harrison has resided and worked professionally in Jamaica for 18 years and has been admitted as an attorney at law, as previously stated. Mr. Harrison is married to Diane Gordon Harrison, children's advocate of Jamaica, with four beautiful children, Dirk, Liam, Milan, and Bree. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dirk Harrison.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'll go with much dispatch. Thank you very much for the introduction. I think my starting point would be to say the general rule. The lowest bid is not necessarily the best bid, and the highest bid is not necessarily the worst bid. But in the circumstances of considering which is best, one needs to take into perspective what exactly is the criteria that you have set out, what exactly are you looking for. But that is the base rule. Another base rule that I would share is the mere fact that there are cost overruns, there are delays. It doesn't mean that there's corruption. Because there are sometimes, there's this tendency to say that because there are cost overruns, because there are delays, there is corruption. It doesn't mean that either. It could be poor workmanship, not efficient, not enough planning, and it is certainly something that desires us to look more into what is happening. So I'll jump very quickly into it. Now, I love to use this slide because I think it's so very important in terms of speaking about what we're doing, what's happening. The young man says, "Dad, I'm constantly carrying organized crime." And his father, who is wiser than him, says, "Government or private sector." Because to the father, he believes both of them are possibly involved in organized crime, are involved in criminality. Want to? It is a very deep but very true statement, but I will move on and not dwell too much on it. Now, in a nutshell, this is what really we're all here about. And if you think about procurement, you think about doing business with the government of Jamaica, doing business anywhere, this really is it. Now, interestingly, the entrance for the public entrance the member of the public has to basically crawl on his knees. He has to walk in a maze trying to get the decision maker. If you look at the maze, he never truly gets the decision maker. But this person who is a lobbyist, what we call in Jamaica the big trousers man, the man in the jacket and tie, he has direct passage to the decision maker. He's a person who either provides funding, provided campaign financing. During the time he's in office, he provides other things and gets perks. But the normal member of the public, the common man, he or she walks in a maze, and if you look at it, never ever gets a decision maker. But the person, the big trousers man, is able to have straight passage. It is cynical, but true. So, just by way of landscape and context, corruption is defined by Transparency International as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Political corruption is a manipulation of policies, institutions, and rules of procedure in the allocation of resources and financing by political decision makers who abuse their position to sustain power, status, and wealth. That's Transparency International, their view. Now, to just give some context to understand what I'm going to next. If one wants to understand the landscape, one understands why one needs rules. Because that, in answer to an earlier question, what does one do in the landscape to determine how you move? You need to determine first what the problem is. That's what I'm going to start doing. I'm just going to define first a problem in Jamaica. So I'm going to refer to Professor Anthony Clayton of the University of the West Indies and a study he did. And he quotes, and I quote, he says Jamaica has a road density of 1,881 kilometers per million persons, the second highest in the world, but only 10% of the road network was in a good condition. Let me repeat that. Based on a 1993-94 World Bank study, Jamaica has a road density of 1,881 kilometers per million persons, the second highest in the world, but only 10% of the road network is developed in good condition. So it reflects bad construction, poor maintenance in part due to preferential assigning contracts to favored contractors. So his study continues, and I just read that, I started to read some of it. So Professor Clayton continues. He says, the direction of public work contracts into the hands of political affiliates has been so particularly damaging, as this has often resulted in unnecessarily expensive or poor quality infrastructure. For example, a contract to build a road might provide an opportunity to reward political affiliates, and shoddy construction would ensure that the road surface would crumble, which would then allow the issuing of another contract to resurface the road. This is one of the reasons why Jamaica has simultaneously one of the most dense road networks in the world, and one of the worst road networks in terms of percentage of road in good condition. So this, at the second paragraph, is what I had started to read before. But when one continues to understand what he's saying, I just, 3 lines from the end, where it starts, another related area of concern is the placing of public work contracts, as a number of these have gone to organizations that are fronts for organized crime. This means that the main source of income for some of Jamaica's criminal organizations is probably tax dollars rather than narco trafficking or extortion. So Professor Clayton continues, and importantly, he says about 80% of all major construction projects in Jamaica come via the government. So all major contractors understand the need to maintain good relations with the party in power, and some are particularly close to key decision makers in or both of the parties. If the contractor is awarded a large contract, he may then be expected to take on additional labor from other organizations that are affiliated to the party in power. This may take the form of providing site security, construction materials, and casual labor, all of which will come with an additional overhead. This means construction is significantly more expensive than it should have been. The difference is the cost of corruption. End quote. Most of you in the room remember the Morris Oxford, that motor car. We had many taxis. Nobody builds cars like that anymore. Just the same way, nobody builds roads as they did years ago. The Bauxite Company, they seem to build the best roads. And we ask ourselves in Jamaica, why is that the roads not being built at the same quality as they were built years ago? The cynic will say, it's because it's been poorly built, so you'll get another contract to fix it again, and you will continue to benefit from government work. But Professor Clayton is quite profound in what he's saying here in terms of appreciating the link between politics, the construction industry, and the award of contracts. It is cynical, but so true, especially in the context of Jamaica. So I just insert this also. Being the former Contractor General of Jamaica prior to last year, February, there was a merger of 3 offices. We were only at the Office of the Contractor General monitoring 10%, only 10% of approximately 10,000 government contracts that are awarded average each year. 10,000 contracts are awarded each year. And I'm going to show you some statistics shortly that one can understand why there's a need to have a system in place to ensure that you monitor, police, and if necessary, refer for prosecution persons, because you see the possibility of what appears to be a trough. And if the trough is not managed, you have persons who may go out of line. So the thought I'm developing is there's a reason for rules. One needs to determine what the problem is, what is the problem you have, what are the rules you have in place, and how you're going to enforce those rules. That's the starting point. So it continues. Professor Clayton, indicated, probably, and that's a faux pas for Grenada and Professor Monroe. My apologies. Yes, very careful. He continues, and at the very last paragraph, one can understand, especially in the context of Jamaica, where we have the perception of corruption evolving, especially on the municipal level, the parish council level, where contracts are awarded. We know all about splintering of contracts, but what is interesting, prior to last year, the threshold was 500,000 Jamaican dollars that all persons were required to declare to the Contractor General on a quarterly basis, all contracts awarded below that threshold. What happens? One day you will say, Tom Stroke, he gets a contract for 499,000. Same day, another contract for 480,000. Same day, another contract for 490,000. What they're doing is splintering it because they realize the Contractor General will be on top of them if they go over the threshold. So there's collusion, and what happens is that they splinter the contracts, which obviously amounts to now about at least $1.5 million. And that's the way to avoid the radar, as they say. Now, the context of what I was telling you before, these are the statistical readings from Jamaica for period 2009 to 2016. And one understands the value of contracts. So understanding in 2009, there are 15 billion Jamaican dollars, equivalent of 175 million contracts awarded. In 2015, we have 86 million US dollars worth of contracts being awarded, 101 billion. We are understanding now, me having said that on average there are 10,000 contracts issued each year. We are understanding why there's a potential that people will want to or might misbehave. We are understanding this is big money. We understand this is money that people kill for. It's understanding that people hurt people if they believe that you're getting in their way in terms of every man, as we say in Jamaica, want to eat a food. But when one looks at the figures, one realizes there's enough there for everybody. But because of greed that Dr. Currentig spoke of earlier, persons are trying to manipulate, to control, and to dictate. So we're talking about big money, and as I told you earlier, on average there are about 10,000 contracts that have been issued over the last probably 10 years. The figures are not yet out for 2017, 2018, but on average. And this is what was awarded in respect of over 500,000. We're not speaking about the others below 500,000. So the statistics continues. Now to understand, and forgive me for the lighting, we see the number of contracts, and it's divided, as you know, into goods, works, and services. You see that from 2011 to 2015. You see the number of contracts that are endorsed, because in Jamaica what happens, there's an office, oversight office, the Office of the Contractor General. Then there's a National Contracts Commission, which acts as a direct arm to the Cabinet Office. They are the persons who register contractors and also endorse a recommendation directly to Cabinet above a particular threshold for the award of contracts. But one understands now, and seeing the value in goods, works, and services, we're speaking about big money. We're speaking about, in 2015, $13 billion in terms of value of services. Goods, 14 billion. 2015, works, 9 billion. It's big money. Big money. So in terms of the Office of the Contractor General that I reference here, I mentioned earlier that on average 10,000 contracts were being awarded. I mentioned also the office, because of resource constraints, were only able to monitor 10%. But here you have the number of contracts that the office monitored. So we're only monitoring, on average 10,000 were awarded, but only the office with pale resources of 10 persons, 5 for construction, 5 for non-construction, are monitoring these. So each person probably has 150 contracts trying to monitor, trying to call, trying to check up, trying to do all of that. So it is necessary to build resources. But sometimes what happens, as we all understand, systems are put in place and governments won't give you the funding. They know why they won't give you the funding, for you to have all the resources to monitor properly. So this is showing a distinction between construction and non-construction. So I just give you this as in terms of a landscape to understand the starting point of, you need to know first and foremost before you develop any procurement system, what is the nature of the problem inverted, what is it that you have to deal with. Then you can then set your rules in understanding. So as we move along quickly, this is current, though it says at 26 June 2018. It shows all the parties who have signed on and ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. I'm sure with a microscope we could find Jamaica and also Grenada somewhere there, but we are so small that it doesn't show. But in general context, the United Nations Convention, one of the branches of it, not branches, but arms, speaks about international corporations, international anti-corruption conventions. And we need to appreciate that it's a global fight in terms of, for integrity. So we're bringing the fight against corruption to the political forefront. That's what UNCAC does, setting legally binding standards and principles by which signatory states can be held to account, and fostering both the domestic action and international cooperation need to tackle the many facets of corruption. Now, as we go now into a little deeper into procurement, I like to utilize this because it's very important. And in terms of determining what your problem is, you then need to put in place the mechanisms. And this is what UNCAC says. The convention applies to state parties to enhance their cooperation at various levels with developing countries, with a view to strengthen the capacity of the latter to prevent and combat corruption. A framework, however, should not be confused with a blueprint. So what they're saying is that we're providing you with a framework. You in Grenada must determine what it is, a procurement system that suits you. Not because you see somebody else with it, it means that it will fit here. You need to determine the landscape, the circumstances you know best, and you then determine what it is that is suitable in your country. So, Article 9 of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption sets out that a public procurement system must be based on transparency, competition, and integrity. 3 very important things: transparency, competition, and integrity. What should come from that? Fairness and public confidence. You seek, in terms of your procurement system, to maximize economy and efficiency, to obtain arrive at sustainable development, minimizing negative impact on the environment, and ultimately fostering national growth and development. So what I just shared with you, the broad goals, objectives of Government of Jamaica public procurement system, something that we too have taken from UNCAC, and I just share with you because I think they're things that we all need to ascribe to, and I'm sure you have it here already. 1, ensuring that your procurement is properly regulated through laws, rules, and procedures to govern the various aspects of procurement operations. You must have that. You must ensure the procurement staff are competent, qualified, well-trained, and equipped. Makes no sense that you have an office and you only have one procurement officer who has other duties, you can't respond to anybody in terms of the requirements. You need to have persons who are trained, and the place needs to be well-resourced. You need to ensure that contractors understand the procurement system and their responsibilities and obligations in the procurement process. You need to ensure that public procurement activities are conducted fairly, allowing for equal treatment of eligible contractors. You must ultimately ensure transparency in the procurement system. You have to ensure the establishment and maintenance of mechanisms for resolving disputes in the procurement process. You must have a system that people can either appeal to if they believe they have been wronged, and you must have some recourse for them following due process. It must facilitate environmentally responsible procurement practices, continuously improving the efficiency of the procurement system through the use of appropriate technology, inter alia. Jamaica, some 3 years now, has gone with the e-procurement. The oversight body also has it, so we are able to view what they are doing electronically from our computers too. You must ensure ethical conduct among public officials, public officers, and contractors in the procurement process, and ensure that providing procurement opportunities for local contractors in support of national development. Now, with everything, before you do it, you need a plan. You can't start a process, a procurement process, and in the middle of it, you're then trying to determine certain variables. You need to have a plan first. You need to know exactly what you want to get, how you're going to get there. This is a basic plan. You need to review the requirement. It starts here at the lower right-hand corner. Review what is it that you want. You want a tractor. You need a procurement plan, a process. You then must have a tendering process. You then, at the end of the tendering process, will ultimately negotiate and award a contract to somebody. And then ultimate, you expect that they're deliverables. So having awarded a contract, somebody is going to provide something to you. And it's within the keeping of the specifications of what you wanted from the very start. At the end, you're going to monitor the performance. Does this thing work? Does it fit the requirement as we had set out? So you have to have a plan. You need to follow a plan. Because if you either develop a plan in the middle or at the end, you're doomed to failure. And also, more importantly, that means the procurement process was probably flawed. So what are some of the issues that one needs to consider in terms of appreciating a tender process? And what I've done here is just highlighted quite a few of them in terms of Jamaica, because we have noticed a number of them, because the Office of the Contractor General, what we did is that every single thing that happened, every single thing that's built in Jamaica, the building of the airport, hospitals, the schools, we monitor it. Every single thing that's done. So we have architects, engineers, we have all the skill sets of persons who are able to monitor these things. And these are some of the things that we realize. But it's a very detailed and important process in terms of procurement, and that's why persons need the requisite training. It is not just basic 1, 2, 3. You need persons who are trained, and I know too that Common Secretariat would offer that training. I know UNCAC, UNODC does it too, but you need to get persons who are properly trained and certified. So some of the examples we see: receipt and opening of bid late. So you're told that the bid box must close at 3 o'clock on the 15th of February, and at 3:30 you're accepting bids. That's unfair to the man who got there at 10 o'clock in the morning. Not because the person is either known or the person is across the road or tells you that something happened, God forbid, personal, and they weren't able. The thing says 3 o'clock. It has a partial date. The lock has to be placed on the box, and that's the end of it. Submitting multiple bids in the same tender box. Some bid opportunities have 2 boxes, one for technical specifications and the other for the general bid. So there are rules that govern that. So if the person puts both in one box, that's something that would deem the person being treated as non-responsive. You have rules set out, you have to follow the rules. So you have to have strict guidelines and follow them, because what's going to happen is that somebody is going to complain the process is unfair, I was not treated fairly, and for that reason, they believe the process should be aborted. So failure to provide adequate information to bidders in aid of, so the procuring entity must provide adequate information. You cannot be trying to offer a procurement opportunity and you don't offer all the relevant information. Persons keep on asking questions upon questions. So it means that either you haven't done it properly, the bid document is not prepared properly, and you need to go back to scratch. But what does that mean? As happens many times, you lose grant funding. Because you take so long and the things are bought it so many times, what happens ultimately is that the grant funding runs out. You have 12 months to spend it. The process takes so long, and the money goes back to the IDB, the World Bank, or whoever else. So we need to consider the intricacies of these things that when we're doing them, to try to execute them properly. Issues surrounding bid securities happens a lot. Unstamped bid security. Entities requesting bid security be a percentage of the bid rather than a fixed sum. Jamaica has a fixed sum that it must be, not a percentage. You can determine what you think it should be. Evaluation undertaken by members of the procurement committee who later approve it. This is one that I think is very important. Evaluation undertaken by members of the procurement committee who later approve the recommendation. That's a conflict. You can't do that. And even though you may have a board, members sit on a particular sub-board to treat with something. These very persons are now going to be the final arbiters in the decision-making process. We need to be careful. Rules need to be set and they need to be followed to determine that we don't have these problems. Improperly constituted procurement committee and head of entity taking part in the evaluation process. The head of entity, the chairman of the board, cannot being the final person, or the board members, cannot be part of the evaluation process to look at the actual bid and the circumstance, and then at the end of the day, it comes to you for approval. Having left the evaluation committee, it then comes to the board. You can't be on both. That's a conflict of interest. So we need to ensure that we develop these standards and understand the procedures. Approval not received from the procurement committee, NCC, or cabinet, but this one I love. I just love it because it's just crazy. Excessive charge for tender document as a means of discouraging potential bidders. You know what they did? They had a security services contract being offered. And to ensure that only a particular set of contractors applied, whereas the normal cost of the bid document was $1,500 Jamaican dollars, which is probably about 20 US, they put the price at $10,000. Because you have in Jamaica over 100 security companies, some registered, some aren't, well, all they have to register to do business in the government, but there are so many of them. They were trying to select just to ensure you got a particular type, quality. You can't do that, that's unfair. You can't do that. It's government money. If you're doing your private business, your private company, you can choose who you want. But then you can't do that in terms of trying to discourage other persons by putting a high price tag on the bid document. So there are rules. Jamaica has its handbook. The law of Jamaica, the new Procurement Act, is coming in on April 1. But we have to have rules that, no, this is another one that I love. It's just special. The OCG did a report on a company, award to a company named One Touch Construction Equipment Limited, formerly One Touch Tours and Equipment, by the St. Thomas Parish Council. You know what happened in this case? The company has qualification for garbage collection. They were given a contract to build a bridge. Let me start again. The company is registered as in garbage collection category, and they were awarded a contract to build a bridge. Now, there are reasons for rules. You're thinking of the reason. You need to ensure you have engineers, people who can speak, or whatever other persons build things, that they can speak to the technical specifications, that the thing is safe. But others, because of friend and company, you give it to a garbage collection company. But obviously how these things work is that the subcontracting. These companies will get it and they are front for somebody else, and then they will have somebody who comes to subcontract to do the work. But this is not concerning the welfare of persons because the bridge could collapse. So what happens in Jamaica is a regime in respect of categories of persons. Grade 1 contractors, these are people who build highways, hotels, big things. Grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. There's quite an extensive category of persons and category of contractors. But understanding that process is very important. So this is a no-no. The Contractor General's report, which I issued, spoke about this, that something was very wrong with it, and the parish council collected it after the the media spread story of the scandal. So as we wind down, public procurement, as I said earlier, is the acquisition of goods, services, and works by any of the prescribed methods, using public funds executed by the procuring entity on its behalf, where procuring entity means any ministry, department, local government authority, statutory body, executive agency, public company, or any other agency when the government owns controlling interest, that is at least 51%. This is from the Jamaican rules. Because one, the starting point to determine, do you have jurisdiction, is it a government company, and the threshold that is used here is that does the government have a controlling interest in it? So that's something that ultimately that can be monitored, and you have to follow particular rules. So how do we avoid the problems? I won't go through all of these, but you'll have these for your benefit. The slide will be presented, but it just speaks, and I go quickly. You must have a process that is transparent. You must have a competitive environment for cross-border trading. You must have, repeat, transparency, competitive tendering process. You must ensure that public funds are used according to purposes intended. The government must ensure that its officials meet high professional standards of knowledge, skills, and integrity. The fifth principle requires governments to put mechanisms in place to prevent risk of integrity public procurement. It calls on governments to provide specific mechanisms for the monitoring of public procurement and the direct detection and sanctioning of misconduct. You must have a system, blinking indicators, that you can track decisions and identify potential irregularities. This is ultimately where we are now. I think we ultimately agree we can never get rid of corruption. It is how we contain and maintain it. But as it is right now, it is still has gained first place. Thank you very much. Is it lunch? Is it not lunch? Yes, please. I did it. Could you just hand out those for me, because I think it's lunchtime and they're going to eat me very soon. Could you just switch to the one I said? Just to follow up on what Dr. K did earlier this morning, I wish to just share a few points. I don't think I'll have more than 15 minutes in terms of what I have here to do. A form is being shared with you. I just ask you to have a look at it. Excuse me a minute. They have all come down. I'll just go through this one very quickly. It's a form with two answers available. One for you to provide an answer, and the second for you to ask the person next to you what they think. The person to your right or left. The first one, overall, it is better to be humble and honest than to be successful and dishonest. It is better to be humble and honest than to be successful and dishonest. Could I ask you to select an answer? And the person next to you, please ask the person next to you what their answer is, and please tick it. Yeah, just wait, I'm coming. Yeah, just wait, I'm coming to it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, number two. If you trust somebody completely, you're asking for trouble. Could I ask you to select an answer and then turn to the person next to you and ask the person next to you what their answer is? And in turn, the person needs to ask you so you can fill out the form. You have to ask the person next to you, and then somebody needs to ask you. Number 3. Okay, we're jumping to number 3. A leader should take action only when it is morally right. Please select your answer and ask your colleague next to you to select an answer. A leader should take action only when it is morally right. We're following up on the excellent presentation of Dr. K. Please consult your colleague. Number 4, a good way to handle people is to tell them what they like to hear. Do you agree or disagree? That one you'll have to write out the answer whether I agree or disagree. Please ask the person next to you whether or not they believe a good way to handle people is to tell them what they like to hear. Yeah, I see somebody down there saying I can't be bothered. Whatever they want. Number 5. Number 5, there is no excuse for telling a white lie to someone. There is no excuse for telling a white lie to someone. Please select your answer and ask your colleague next to you for his or her answer. Number 6, it makes sense to flatter important people. It makes sense to flatter important people. Please select your answer and ask your colleague next to you what their answer is. Number 7, most people who get ahead as leaders have led very moral lives. Most people who get ahead as leaders have led very moral lives. Do you agree or disagree? Please ask your colleague for his or her answer. Number 8, it is better not to tell the real reason you did something unless it benefits you to do so. It is better not to tell people the real reason you did something unless it benefits you to do so. Please ask your colleague beside you for his or her answer. Number 9, the majority of people are brave, good, and kind. Number 9, the majority of people are brave, good, and kind. Do you agree or disagree? So, Finley, you're not doing it? You are doing it? Okay. Number 10, it is hard to get to the top without sometimes cutting corners. It is hard to get to the top without sometimes cutting corners. Do you agree or disagree? So thank you, everybody. Is there anyone, is there anyone in the group, by a show of hands, who has violent disagreement with the person next to them? Is there anyone with violent disagreement, or you're all on the same page? All on the same page? No? Okay, well, the head table has decided to take the lead. They have violent disagreements here. I won't, because time does not permit. I'm not going to ask them to tell us what the violent disagreement is. Please keep this form. I think it's very useful at some other time. But just quickly, as we wrap up in about 10 minutes. Dr. Corenting had earlier shown you an example, and I bring this one to your attention. Could you just take it up a bit for me, scroll up? Medicine for patient, parent. Your parent is gravely ill in the family home. The doctor advised that the medicine to cure the illness permanently is in the pharmacy. It is 3 a.m. The doctor says if the patient does not get the medicine in 1 hour, the patient will die. The pharmacy is across the road from the family home. Looking from the sidewalk, outside the pharmacy, through the glass, the parent, son, daughter can see the medicine on a shelf. The pharmacy is closed as it is a holiday weekend. The parent lives in rural St. Andrew. To drive to the next nearest pharmacy is a 2.5-hour drive. What should you do? Break the glass or let the parent die? So, interestingly, before I hear those answers, this module was done with some police officers from DSP Reed's office some weeks ago. Some over 100 police officers from the mega organized anti-corruption task force. Some person said their mother would have to die. Some person said they refused to break the glass. And I think what Dr. Corenting was saying, and I think he started the presentation, there are choices you make in life, you know. You can either choose to save your parent by breaking the glass and getting it. Some persons came with wonderful ideas. We'd put a piece of plywood there. We'd ensure that security is there until in the morning when the owners come. We'd try to call the owner. Some people came with wonderful ideas, but some people said they refused to break the glass. Some people even said, suppose the medicine doesn't cure her. But we have a moral dilemma. Do you do what the law says you should do as your right in terms of ensuring the welfare of your parent? Or do you break the law? You have a choice to make, but there are ultimate consequences if you make it. So I would dare say that there probably is no right or wrong answer, but one needs to appreciate that if you break the law, you're going to lose your job. If you're a public servant, you'll have a conviction and you can no longer serve. But your parent may live, but it's your choice to determine what you will do. Could you just go to the other one for me? Just scroll down for me. So, just very quickly. You're a volunteer at a swim meet at your National Aquatic Center. There are 20 teams who enter the swim meet. Your child swims for the Untouchables Swim Club. The sport is a volunteer sport as it relates to timekeepers, scorers, marshals, lane judges, and starters. You're selected to be a lane judge / timekeeper for lane 3. The other 2 judges in lane 3 perform the same task as you at the same time, or perform the task at the same time. Your daughter, who is 6 years old, is assigned to lane 3 for the 50-meter breaststroke. A line judge is supposed to determine the swimmer swims outside the lane, and the timekeeper is to record the time of each swimmer. Any conflict? Can I hear, what's the conflict?
She's my daughter, and obviously I want to see her do well. So if she goes outside of the lane, chances are I may want to override the decision.
Did you hear? Did you speak?
Because she's my daughter, if, for instance, she swims outside of that particular lane, I may want to give her a pass, and that is going to be a conflict.
Anybody else with a different or same answer? Any different answer? Okay. Pardon me?
I feel that if you are an honest person, I don't see a conflict.
Okay. That's a very profound answer. Now, just before I comment, I continue. The chief judge to whom you inquire says, no conflict. Even though another parent insists that there's a conflict, the chief judge says, it is okay, since it's a volunteer sport. And all you need to do is declare your relationship. and you are to return to your lane 3 assignment. Just scroll on for me. Now, one wonders, is that enough? Is that enough? Have you gone far enough to determine what is the outcome? So it continues. In lane 4, next to lane 3, is your neighbor. And his granddaughter is also assigned to lane 3 to swim the same race as your daughter. And during the race, with 20 meters to the finish line, your neighbor jumps and screams, "Swim, girl, swim, swim, girl, swim," cheering his granddaughter. Any conflicts? Any conflicts? Now, if I am in lane 4 as a judge, my granddaughter is in the same lane, and I am shouting at her, and she is behind the person in lane 3, and because of my shouting, she then passes a person in lane 3, I have created an unfair advantage. I am a judge. I am a person who is supposed to stand out. So we have the things to contend with. What are the options? The options that we'll go through very quickly. You have recusal. Your first option would have been to declare your conflict, relationship, and then you would need to withdraw. But as we close the very last exercise, the National Aquatic Center was constructed by a government agency with funding, a grant, from Imperial Mother Country, guided by the sanctioned rules of engaged international grant agencies approved by the Ministry of Finance. IMC was permitted to take into your country equipment, tax and duty-free, and 300 laborers to work on the project. They arrived in your country without work permits, and after 6 months working without permits, the minister waived the requirement retrospectively. I think we all know about that in this part of the hemisphere. The equipment used on this project, could you just scroll for me, please, was moved to another government joint venture. Local contractors were not allowed to bid on the project. It is a crime in your country to not have a work permit before entering the host country for the sole purpose of being employed. Please investigate and make recommendations for charges. You'll have this for your benefit to read, but in closing, Chinese Harbor has been in Jamaica quite some time. Chinese Harbor has signed an MOU with the government of Jamaica, and it is being implemented through the National Works Agency. Chinese Harbor is only supposed to build roads in conjunction with the Works Agency. This is not for TV. Okay. Good. Let me speak freely. There are about 8 other Chinese companies in Jamaica. What is done is that through the MOU, the equipment is carried in duty-free. They don't pay any custom duties. The 8 other companies are doing other jobs. The equipment that is bought in duty-free, it is alleged. So I've been told, sitting on a corner, hearing somebody passing, whistling. What they do is move the equipment from one project to another. They carry it in duty-free. The local contractor cannot compete with the economies of scale. The local contractor has to pay for duties to bring the thing into the country. The local contractor has to then pay to move his equipment from one location to another. The Chinese are able to use the system and to maximize their benefits. What you have also is concerns, and it has been brought up in other investigations I started before the merger, of particular other foreign nationals who come into our country building hotels. And they bring in workers. When we in our country have artisans who can do the very same work. They are brought in, and the notion that you should have work permits prior to entering at the immigration, you should have had that all documentation. People come without. And what happens is that retrospectively you see things are being fixed through the Ministry of Labor. We are at a serious time, at a crossroads. And interestingly, corruption or the manipulation of systems is marred deep in procurement processes. When one looks at where I started as I close, that's why I did it that way. If one understands the context of 82 billion Jamaican dollars, I think the equivalent of what we saw of 800 million US dollars, it is big business. It is such that people will obviously take chances. Persons may seek to break the rules, and there will obviously be collusion between persons in high places and persons in not so high places. Ladies and gentlemen, time doesn't permit me, but please, this will be provided to you all so you could go through the exercise. It's something I think useful for your staff members, because what is necessary is that as organizations you need to have your own in-house ethical training, and for persons to come in to do training. It's all well and good that you will be given a certificate today of participation, but at the same time your staff members have to be subjected to the same sort of training and have the same sort of certification, because there are dilemmas. As I close, I shared you two things. My wife and I were at the same time in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution in Jamaica. I was a deputy director, she was a deputy director. Both of us had responsibilities, depending on the month, to sign the claims for the other officers and the other 40 lawyers in the office. I never signed my wife's claim. There was no rule that said I shouldn't do it, but she didn't sign mine either. There are certain things that just cannot be done. You cannot sign your wife's claim for her to be paid money. So I knew, and she knew, if it was my month to sign, and there's a possibility that she wouldn't get any check, or I wouldn't get, if she was the only person there. Somebody else had to sign it. So there are a number of things that Dr. Currenting spoke about this morning, that excellent presentation, that I think these worksheets would assist you to bring home some of these things. And finally, the judges have always told me, as in court, I always said finally, and I never stopped. But finally, the example there that's given, the very last one in terms of nepotism, speaks to a case that is about to be tried in Jamaica. It has been some time on the books, of a mayor named Shirley Thornton. I did an investigation as contractor general, and she was mayor under the PNP administration, the opposition party. She gave out, based on what she has been charged, she gave out 18 contracts, recommended it, and even in some instances signed the checks. She gave contracts to her husband, she gave contracts to her 2 sisters, her 3 children, some cousins. Now the importance of this case, and it's one that I've shared with Dr. Currenting and the association, why it is so important and means so much, I think, to me and the work of the OCG that was done, is that when the matter was referred to our DPP, she refused to charge her. She gave some reasons, and the DPP went to the public, the present DPP, and said, Contractor General, bring it on. On another occasion, she said, I quote, can't lose. I wrote back to the DPP asking her to reconsider her position. I did it quietly. I just wrote her to directly, because when she wrote me initially, she copied the world, copied about 10 people and them dog, copied them to say no. I wrote her back, and I didn't copy a soul. Could you kindly review? She wrote back again and copied everybody and them dog and said no. So I took her to court. We went for judicial review. She was represented by Queen's Counsel Lord Gifford. At one of the hearing dates, Queen's Counsel conceded, and we were successful. I think just 2 weeks ago we collected, I think, nearly $2 million in costs for having whopped the DPP. But I think importantly, in terms of what Dr. Currenting has said, is that as persons who are decision makers, sometimes you have to take decisions, bold decisions. You have to challenge the mainstream status quo, and there are consequences that flow with it. But importantly, what I think my team and I were armed with is that we have sufficient persons who are trained, who know procurement, and you need, just like everything else, you need to ensure that you have persons that are trained and know the system. So in terms of making a challenge to support any point you're making in procurement, it is well based. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. some of the key points to take away from the presentation, which was very good, by the way, very informative. We went through the UNCAC, the OCG report, and the best practices in procurement, as well as the exercises. Right now, we would have Ms. Elizabeth Henry Greenidge, who would come to close the proceedings. Okay, sorry, Mrs. Eunice Sandy David.
Thank you. Okay, can we express by way of however you would like to express it, thanks to our presenters and our chairperson. And we are closing this, I trust, useful and interesting half day. I want to share with you that certainly our deputy chairman, the commissioners, and the staff certainly feel that we have achieved our preset objective for today's exercise, being to afford you exposure to very, very experienced, and as we would say in Grenada, seasoned facilitators and presenters to enable the kind of cross-fertilization, knowledge sharing and exchanges and networking among key stakeholders that is so critical. So we believe we have achieved that objective. I trust that you also believe same. Have we achieved it? I know you're very hungry. So let me just express thanks to Mr. Finley, I think who commenced this morning by delivering the invocation, our deputy chairman, Mr. Robert Robinson, for his welcome remarks, and the very packed delivery sessions that we had from our facilitators. We also want to thank our media, our recording engineer. Certainly on your behalf, we thank Liz and Rawl,